Picture the Arcadia Empire. Now picture the absolute top of the food chain. That's the legendary Cardenas clan. These elite warriors have kept the peace for literally generations. Their whole setup flexes 7 hardcore nightly orders. Every single order packs enough raw firepower to solo entire nations. But the absolute highest tier, the Order of the Golden Dragon, made up exclusively of direct bloodline heirs rocking pure gold hair and eyes. Rumor has it, literal dragon blood pumps through their veins. This gives them insane physical and magic stats, making normal people look like total NPCs. Here, these young dragons link up to unlock their inherited powers. They spark crazy supernatural abilities called traits super early on. But get this, they aren't alone. Kids from the side branches also grind here, sweating buckets to break their own genetic caps while living completely in the shadows of the main heirs. Down in the Cardenas training pit, raw power is the only currency that matters. Every single recruit has to survive live brutal combat under the freezing stares of their higher-ups. And out of the whole squad, William Cardenas is flexing as the undeniable number one. He swings his blade with so much confidence it straight up crosses into pure arrogance. William moves with terrifying glitch-like speed, blocking and clapping back at his own family so easily it's honestly insulting. No matter how many step up to the plate, the raw power of the purest direct bloodline acts like an unbreakable brick wall for anyone crazy enough to fight him today. Take the young noble girl rocking the number 2 badge. She is literally about to pass out, totally failing to match the insane, heavy-hitting brute force William keeps spamming. She is completely shook, even after jumping him in a 2-on-1 setup. They haven't made the number 1 sweat even for a microsecond. Then, boom, in the blink of an eye, Dylan Cardenas, the number 4, gets totally wrecked, leaving his partner completely solo against the absolute boss of the class. The girl clenches her jaw and frantically tries to block, but her cold sweat and shaky hands totally give away the fact that she already knows she's completely cooked. William's technique hits like a literal dragon strike. It's a massive force of nature that a basic apprentice block just cannot tank. Pure panic flashes in her golden eyes as she realizes her defense just got completely shredded by the angle of his next swing. With one brutal slash, William launches the girl, ending the fight with a crazy flex that instantly shuts up the whole arena, while the number 2 lies totally laid out on the dirt. William stares down at her, completely disgusted that she couldn't even land a single hit. He just stands there, a terrifying reminder of who actually owns this turf. His ice-cold vibe is literally freaking everyone out. "You're honestly no different from the side branch trash," he snaps, brutally roasting his own direct family by comparing them to the clan's weakest links. Flashing a crazy, cocky smirk, William basically crowns himself the only one who actually deserves to win this elite draft. Way up in the Order's HQ, far from the dirt, the top brass is watching the whole thing go down in real time. Commander Fabian and his crew are glued to these massive glowing holoscreens, streaming every single micro detail of the newbie's stats. Fabian, this totally intimidating dude rocking an eye patch, straight up asks the room who they think is taking the MVP spot this year. Bruno, the head coach, nods, acknowledging the crazy skills being shown off, even though he thinks only one kid actually deserves the rank 1 title. Everybody instantly assumes he means William Cardenas, who is literally just chilling in a crater of wrecked students. The commander totally assumes they're hyping up the number 1. He even points out that numbers 2 and 4 are also pureblood mainliners. They keep debating while live training data scrolls across the academies. Security monitors. Bruno points out that pretty much every single side branch kid has already been wiped off the board, proving that your DNA basically decides if you survive this place. Fabian lets out a heavy sigh. He is totally convinced that the bloodline gap is just an impossible hurdle to jump no matter how hard you grind. The rank system is absolutely brutal, but it works. Number 1 is obviously the heaviest hitter out of hundreds of rookies. All signs point to William easily snagging the gold. But the head coach actually has a completely different take. Hold up a sec. Bruno cuts in, stopping the commander from officially locking in the final scores. Fabian shoots him a super confused look. He's wondering what could actually top the insane god-tier beatdown I just watched. The coach drops a massive bomb. There's actually a super weird side branch kid who hasn't dropped yet, and he has completely stolen the coach's attention. This instantly hooks the commander, since it is insanely rare for a non-pureblood to shine in a room full of literal prodigies. Fabian admits that wild cards pop up sometimes, just by grinding and sweating, but Bruno swears up and down. This kid just hits totally different. This ain't just raw talent. It's a crazy glow-up that completely shatters every rule in the book. When the head instructor drops a claim, that heavy Fabian instantly realizes this kid is packing some serious heat. The name echoing in the room, Lanner Carden Scordian, the guy currently chilling at rank 25. This dude literally spawned out of thin air a few days back, absolutely wrecking everybody in his path to climb the ladder. Jumping from rank 381 to 25 in record time, Fabian is completely shook, convinced he's getting trolled. But Bruno just points at the screen so Fabian can witness the hype himself. The security cams are broadcasting the craziest trial moment yet. A brutal one-on-one clash between the undisputed number 1 and recruit 25. Lanner just stands there radiating a chilling calmness that feels totally out of place in a pressure cooker like this. William Carden smirks like a total villain, mocking Lanner's guts for pulling up solo but promises he won't show an ounce of mercy. Lanner doesn't even flinch, he just casually fires back that he loves the sound of that. Dropping into an unbreakable stance, he preps for the opening clash. Recruit 25 locks onto his opponent's blazing golden stare. His own piercing red eyes flare up. The message is loud and clear: if they're going all out, he isn't pulling a single punch either. William squints, absolutely triggered. You can literally see his blood boiling at Lanner's insane disrespect. Boom, William's aura violently erupts. It's a massive flex of his elite bloodline, suffocating the entire arena with pure pressure. He violently barks at Lanner to draw his blade right now, or he's going to make him deeply regret ever taking a breath. But Lanner, cool as ice, he instantly registers that William's vibe is built way different than the rest of the cannon fodder. That number 1 badge isn't just for show. Flashing a subtle, cocky smirk, our boy decides it's finally time to push his limits. And see how he stacks up against the clan's so-called prodigy. Bring it on, Lanner ruthlessly baits him. He's itching to see exactly what this new body can handle when fueled by his hardcore past-life combat experience. The concrete absolutely crumbles under William's boots. He rockets forward with a terrifying physical force that would instantly snap a normal human in half. He vaults into the sky with an insane acrobatic jump, crashing down like a roaring blue meteor right onto Lanner's guard. Screaming at the top of his lungs, William drops a catastrophic overhead smash, hoping to snap Lanner's sword in two with one devastating hit. The clash triggers a blinding shockwave of blue energy that totally swallows both fighters right in the middle of the arena, kicking up a massive smokescreen. The dust settles. William's jaw practically hits the floor. His ultimate finisher was flawlessly blocked by the exact kid he was just trash-talking. Deflecting with a buttery smooth circular sweep, Lanner totally redirects the hit. He instantly bleeds out all of William's brute strength into thin air like it's nothing. Moving like an absolute ghost, Lanner glides past his enemy, completely shutting down any follow-up attacks before William's brain can even compute what just went down. The rank 1 prodigy stands completely frozen, visibly mauling as Lanner casually steps back with a chill vibe that absolutely destroys his ego worse than any punch to the face. William just stares blankly at his sword, totally mind-blown. His brain is short-circuiting, trying to figure out how a random nobody just tanked a direct hit from his elite genetics. Pride absolutely shattered, he violently insists his blade is way too deadly to get brushed off by some low-tier rookie. Igniting his body in a raging inferno of blue energy, William rushes in for round 2. Screaming at Lanner to stop trolling him, the arena explodes into a chaotic blur of rapid-fire strikes and perfect blocks, leaving sick trails of neon blue and crisp white flashes tearing up the battleground. Lanner defends with a technical mastery that is straight up flawless. Every single twitch is mathematically calculated to save stamina and mana. Up in the VIP section, Bradley realizes Lanner's swordplay is incredibly weird-looking, absolutely nothing like the clan's signature moves. He is utterly blown away by the zero-wasted movement in the kid's defense, geeking out over it with the blue-haired girl next to him. Lanner is parrying kill shots with literal cheat code efficiency, but the most unhinged part, he hasn't even thrown a single punch of his own. Raging out of his mind, William screams at the top of his lungs, demanding Lanner stop dodging around like some pathetic bug. He violently cranks out a massive horizontal slash, fueled by pure tilt, screaming to know if running away is Lanner's only trick to stay alive. Lanner casually sidesteps the deadly arc with a picture-perfect backflip. He touches down with a feather-light grace that basically hacks gravity. His glowing red eyes are totally locked in. He's systematically downloading every single pattern and fatal flaw in Williams' recklessly aggressive style. The sheer kinetic force of Lanner touching down violently shatters the stone beneath his feet, proving that even his dodges are packed with heavy raw energy. William refuses to give him a single second to breathe. Diving back and totally sweating to save his shattered ego, Bro dumps every ounce of his mana into a brutal blue glowing overhead strike of energy, hoping to shut down Lanner's annoying disrespect for good. A massive metallic screech echoes across the yard as their blades collide again, but Lanner just tanks it, refusing to flinch or back up a single millimeter. Then Lanner smoothly backflips out of the danger zone, chilling at a safe distance while William is literally fighting for his life, panting from that wasted effort. With zero emotion, Lanner casually points out that William actually has some decent muscle. It's a totally backhanded flex that just shoves the #1 student straight off the matter. Deep end. William is literally losing his grip on reality right now, screaming that Lanner is all bark and no bite, yelling that he's just been running away from his ultimate moves this whole time. Lanner hits him with a deadpan stare and, in a chillingly calm voice, tells William to finally take this fight. Seriously. Lanner instantly clicks into gear, blazing forward so fast he's literally leaving ghost shadows behind. Bradley watches Lanner's insane battle IQ unfold. Realizing this kid has a strategic mind that no teenager should logically have, William aggressively readies his blade for one final clash. But to a veteran like Bradley, it's glaringly obvious the kid is lacking a massive puzzle piece. Lanner effortlessly slides right past his opponent's defenses, flexing killer instincts that you only get from surviving on the bloody edge of death. No matter how naturally gifted a rookie might be, there's a hard skill cap you just can't break without actual battlefield trauma. William suddenly finds himself breathing the exact same air as Lanner, realizing way too late that the kid in front of him is the actual demon here. His golden eyes bulge in pure panic as his ultimate attack gets deflected with disrespectful ease. William chokes out a groan as Lanner's counterstrike lands perfectly, stumbling hard while his rival flows upward in one buttery smooth motion. The rest of the class is watching this beatdown in absolute dead silence, totally mind-blown that the rank 25 nobody is straight up bullying their top student. Lanner rockets back into the chaos with completely refreshed energy, his crimson eyes glaring with absolute laser focus as he locks onto his prey with glitch-like accuracy, kicking up a massive dust cloud as he teleports across the dirt. Lanner's speed cranks up into a literal blur, completely short-circuiting his enemy's brain. William aggressively grinds his teeth in toxic raw frustration. As it hits him, he completely lost track of Lanner right in the middle of their brawl. Out of nowhere, Lanner spawns right behind him, flexing god-tier speed that leaves the top dog totally exposed. William screams out in pure desperation at this literal cheat code, refusing to swallow the pill that some random commoner just outplayed him in both speed and skill. It's over for you, #1. Lanner drops the verdict in a tone chillingly deadpan like a frozen graveyard. While he loads up the finishing strike, the sheer shockwave of Lanner's wooden training sword slamming into William is so absurdly heavy that the concrete beneath them explodes into a spiderweb of cracks, and the actual air around them violently hums from the kinetic energy. William gets yeeted across the sky like a ragdoll, dragging a massive comet tail of golden light behind him. After eating the entire force of that hit, he violently hacks up Crimson, his eyes rolling dead back into his skull as it finally dawns on him. The astronomical skill gap between them. Lanner takes a heavy grounding inhale, fully aware that the old owner of this trash body could never have pulled off a stunt like that. But now that his memories have totally synced up, Lanner completely grasps his insane potential and his past life's identity. A massive ghostly projection of his former self, the legendary Sword Emperor. Ren looms over his teenage body. Back in the day, Ren was a total sweat who grinded the way of the blade non-stop, pouring every single atom of his soul into hitting flawless perfection. Legends claimed the guy reached a god-tier level where he could casually slice open the actual sky like he was just cutting through butter. Through raw, unhinged power and a completely unbreakable mindset, he snatched the title of Sword Emperor while the whole world watched. But even after literally leveling mountains with one casual swing, Ren was still starved for more, constantly hunting for a boss fight that could actually push his limits. Finally, he pulled up on the most overpowered being of his timeline, the Celestial Demon, for a deathmatch that would dictate everyone's fate. The clash between these two absolute units dragged on for an insane amount of days, pushing their bodies and brains past any normal human limits, literally rewriting the entire geography of the map. In the final brutal moments of that mythic showdown, both titans were sitting at 1 HP. Their bodies were totally wrecked, and their mana pools were completely dry. Bathed under a creepy blood moon, the two warriors stared each other down in a wasteland they created with their own ultimate moves. Ren, bleeding out and running on fumes, couldn't wrap his head around why his sword skills, which he thought were completely maxed out, couldn't just delete his enemy. The Celestial Demon just stood there, hitting him with a toxic, mocking smirk. The demon taunted, wondering why Ren couldn't even land a single scratch. This is literally day one stuff. He mocked completely, trashing the ultimate technique Ren had spent his entire life grinding for. The fiend explained that Ren was just blindly swinging his blade, totally clueless about its true core. He called Ren out for fighting strictly for his own survival, claiming that exact selfish mindset was exactly why he got totally cooked. Ren swallowed the bitter pill, Being told he lacked basic fundamentals was a massive slap in the face for a living legend. Still, the monster threw him a bone, admitting that for a random stray Ren, actually held out way longer than anyone thought. Promising to pay his respects at the very end, the demon delivered his final goodbye. Rest in peace. The man they used to hype up as the Sword Emperor. Bleeding out under a blood-red moon, Ren watched his entire legacy shatter with absolute terrifying permanence. Sprawled out on the cracked dirt, he let his eyes slide shut as his hype officially died. His last brain cells fired off a desperate prayer for one more shot. Just one more respawn to finally sink his blade into that monster. Raising a trembling, blood-soaked hand toward the sky, he wondered if a second playthrough could help him unlock what he was missing. Just like that, the myth of the Sword Emperor got completely wiped. But right at that exact second, the timeline glitched. A totally new saga was about to drop in the most random place imaginable. Leonard violently gasps awake, his heart pounding and lungs burning from the hyper-realistic playback of his own game over. He clumsily scrambles up in the dead center of the dirt training yard, completely spinning out trying to separate real life from the Emperor's brutal memories. That same nightmare, Leonard mutters, massaging his pounding temples. Cue Recruit 133. Some ash-haired kid with a massive ego struts up to Leonard, flashing a super toxic smirk while his squad backs him up. Leonard immediately feels a weird shift inside his own chest. It felt crazy familiar, but totally wrong for his current weak stats. Out of nowhere, Recruit 133 throws a sucker punch, yelling that they should keep the beatdown rolling. In a split second of pure, locked-in focus, Leonard's crimson eye tracks the incoming fist like slow motion. Moving like absolute water, he effortlessly deflects the strike with his forearm, leaving Recruit 133 hanging wide open. The bully totally freezes, absolutely shook that Leonard could move that fast. The whole squad of trainees stares with their jaws on the floor, losing their minds over the insane parry they just watched. Meanwhile, Leonard just stares down at his own palm, stunned. He realizes his muscle memory just hijacked the wheel. The raw energy radiating through his veins is on a completely different level than anything he has felt in this brand new playthrough. Recruit 133 staggers backward, his face twisting with ugly rage and the burning embarrassment of getting swatted away like a bug, totally blinded by his bruised ego. The kid snatches up a wooden practice blade and charges Leonard again in a super reckless rush. "Stop acting tough," roared Rugal, also known as Recruit 283, unleashing a nasty overhead swing meant to snap his target in half. But Leonard Cardenas Corleones ghosted him with crazy speed no one saw coming, sidestepping the lethal chop like it was nothing. Dylan Cardenas just stood there glitching out, his eyes bulging in pure shock as his massive attack hit air. Leonard felt his limbs popping off entirely on autopilot, like he practically had wall hacks for every gap in his enemy's guard. The second the bully stumbled, Leonard shifted into a deadly counterstance. Smash. A heavy strike connected, dropping Dylan straight into the dirt, trapping him in an aura of pure humiliation. Leonard casually walked off, sensing a phantom force, puppeteering his every move. The backup squad, wearing numbers 257 and 329, basically screamed in panic after watching their boy get clapped in seconds. Leonard stopped dead and glared at them with sub-zero energy. He literally looked like an entirely different human than the absolute loser they used to bully. Pure terror locked the two trainees in place. They couldn't wrap their heads around this insane flex from the clan's biggest outcast. Dylan scrambled to stand up, but that counter hit left him seeing stars and desperately gasping for air. Sweating hard, the other two goons rushed Leonard at the exact same time, banking on their 2-versus-1 advantage to bail them out. Leonard tracked their sloppy rush, and suddenly a switch flipped in his brain. His crimson eyes flared with absolute killing intent. "I remember it all," Leonard whispered, unsheathing his blade with picture-perfect form. In one smooth blur, he totally stuffed their combo attack, blasting them backward with a thunderous shockwave. Catching massive air, Leonard launched himself up and dropped. An axe kick straight into the face of Recruit 9. The crunch was absolutely brutal. Boom! He body slammed the dude straight into the dirt, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Dead silence dropped over the courtyard as Leonard just stared down at the bullies he had absolutely wrecked. He just stood there letting it sink in. That crazy recurring nightmare messing with his head. Yeah, it wasn't just some random hallucination. Flashbacks hit him like a truck. Ren, the legendary Sword Emperor, completely popping off under a blood-red moon. That same vision used to completely scramble his brain and ruin his training sessions. But right now, it all just clicked. Leonard finally realized the insane life and brutal death of the guy in his head were actually his own past memories. He fully embraced who he really was. He was literally the reincarnation of Ren, the undefeated Sword Emperor from another dimension. Sure, it was a massive pill to swallow, but the insane combat skills he just whipped out were all the proof he needed. Getting isekai'd into his own, he couldn't help but wonder, did his desperate final wish right before he died actually drag his soul into this brand new body? Snap! A sharp burning pain ripped through his arm, pulling him right back to the present moment. His current hardware was completely nerfed. His muscles were screaming just from swinging a sword a couple of times. Leonard flexed his hand, instantly realizing whoever owned this body before him had completely ruined its stats with a garbage training routine. Armed with the ultimate cheat code, his past life's master-level knowledge, he knew he had to rebuild his stats from scratch the right way right now. Standing under the cold moonlight, he made a hard promise to himself. He was going to use every single trick in his mental arsenal to become ridiculously overpowered. He was dead set on shattering the ceiling his past self, Ren, could never break through. With absolute fire in his eyes, he geared up to totally eclipse his past life and claim the #1 spot in the world. Cut to the Cardenas clan's training grounds. The whole place was practically dripping with a heavy, tense vibe. William Cardenas, the absolute top dog of the clan, was just chilling on a high balcony, letting his lackeys feed him the latest intel. Recruit number 5 stepped up nervously, breaking the news that 3 of their heavy hitters just got completely sidelined. The guy explained how the trio got absolutely clapped in the most embarrassing way possible by just one dude. William's ears perked up at the name of the madman who pulled off such a crazy flex in mere seconds. With a cold boss-level tone, he demanded the ID numbers of the guys who just ate dirt. They were number 3, 29, 257, and 133, the minion answered, sweating buckets. Another lackey in the room visibly gasped. Those guys were basically elite-tier recruits. Total panic started washing over his face, as he realized this random new wildcard could completely shatter their current power rankings. William just narrowed his eyes, zeroing in. His brain was running a million calculations behind a crazy, dead-eyed stare. Then, crack. He instantly supercharged his blade with crackling blue lightning, warning his crew to watch their mouths. Nobody was going to mess up his perfect streak. Lurking in the shadows, William dissected the intel file on recruit number 381. A super cocky smirk crept onto his face. He was already wondering if this kid was actually leveled up enough to be his personal pawn. Flashback to a super distant memory. Right before the bitter end, a shadowy figure dropped one final massive truth bomb on Ren. They told him straight up his biggest fatal error was grinding for the max level way too late in life, completely ignoring his core mana foundations. The ultimate cheat code, perfectly balancing the 5 elements and locking in that rock-solid base while he was still a teenager. If only Ren had figured that out back in the day. His final bloody boss fight would have ended in a totally different way. Snapping back to the present, Leonard was deep in meditation, glowing with a heavy blue aura. He knew exactly how massive this second chance was. Now that he was back in a young body, he was dead set on constructing the massive mana base he totally missed out on in his past life. Pure, raw energy started swirling violently around his chest, answering to his every command. Piece by piece, he was basically recoding his new physical hardware to handle and blast out an insane amount of power. "I actually pulled it off," he whispered. He could feel the pure, terrifying strength pumping through his veins again, clearer than ever. Even though he used to be the absolute GOAT in his past life, he never forgot how much he got completely stomped at this age just because his core energy was trash. Outside, the massive Cardenas clan banner whipped violently in the wind, a heavy reminder of the toxic, cutthroat family politics Leonard had to survive. Down in the massive cafeteria, all the grunts were stuffing their faces, trying to recover their HP after a brutal day of grinding. Leonard was absolutely demolishing his food, knowing a future raid boss needs max protein to hit untouchable status. Out of nowhere, a giant shadow blocked his light. Somebody was hunting for recruit number 381. It was an absolute unit of a guy who had already heard the crazy rumors about Leonard clapping 3 dudes the day before. The massive stranger slammed his tray down next to him, genuinely shocked that the kid was eating like an absolute vacuum cleaner. Towering over Leonard like a final boss, the giant smirked and dropped his old lower-tier rank just to test him. But Leonard instantly fired back, correcting him on the spot. His voice didn't even shake a millimeter, totally unfazed by the guy's insane aura. The absolute tank just laughed and introduced himself as Danor, flexing his brand new elite rank as the clan's official number 7. He's totally flexing his brand new rank, bragging about how he snatched the title by beating the absolute brakes off the last guy who had it. Reeking of pure arrogance, Danner breaks down how this clan actually works. Basically, if you want to level up, you just pick a fight with a higher up and steal their spot by force. But honestly, Leonard doesn't even flinch at this massive ego trip, cutting right through the yap with a deadpan chilling question. "What do you actually want from me?" Cianor instantly backpedals, slapping on a fake smile. He claims he just wants to drop some insider info about the clan's current political mess. He warns Leonard that things are literally boiling over since the big three ranks 1, 2, and 4 are aggressively gobbling up territory, ready to crush anyone caught in the crossfire. 0% interested in this high school level drama, Leonard casually pushes his chair back and stands up. He coolly drops the fact that he's already super aware of the direct Cardenas heirs, you know, the untouchables rocking that signature golden hair and golden eyes. The beefy dude immediately goes ghost white. He practically begs Leonard to shut his mouth, terrified that some heavy hitter might be listening in on their little chat. Completely out of patience, Leonard snaps, telling him to cut the fluff and get straight to the point. Danner just freezes, suddenly realizing that the dude standing in front of him is a completely different beast compared to the total pushover he used to be. Gritting his teeth, Danner tries to push the narrative that surviving this brutal academy is all about who you team up with. He leaks that over half of the 500 students have already picked their poison in this deadly game of chess. He insists the bottom feeders need to squat up or get wiped out, offering Leonard a VIP spot in his new crew alongside numbers 3 and 9. But without skipping a single beat, Leonard drops a cold hard no. He sarcastically thanks him for the gossip and just dips, leaving number 7 absolutely flabbergasted, wondering if Leonard took one too many hits to the dome. Later, as the sunset splashes the academy gardens in bleeding shades of orange and gold, Leonard is strolling solo, but his radar is on high alert. He stops dead in his tracks, feeling a heavy aura lurking nearby. Thud, thud, massive footsteps aggressively block his path. It's William's lapdogs, running errands for the number 1 guy himself. They bark that. William was hyped to hear Leonard curve number 7's invite, and now, the big boss demands a face-to-face like right now. Leonard mentally smirks, realizing that in this hellhole privacy is literally a myth, and all roads lead straight to the apex predators. When the goon tries to shove William's forced alliance down his throat, Leonard shuts it down instantly, telling the scrub to get out of his face before things get ugly. Triggered by being swatted away like a literal bug, the attacker lunges forward, screaming that Leonard is going to pay for his massive ego. A heavy, suffocating pressure wraps around Leonard, but he just stands there, icy calm, waiting for the strike. Then, in a buttery smooth glitch of motion, he effortlessly dodges the wooden blade, closing the gap in a literal microsecond. His raw stats are just completely broken. Flexing his terrifying inner mana, Leonard casts a demonic shadow that instantly swallows every ounce of the guy's will to fight. The lackey screeches in pure horror as Leonard literally crushes his sword barehanded, zipping across the dirt like a lightning strike. The finishing blow is so insanely fast and heavy that the dude doesn't even process his defeat before his brain hits the reset button. The number 157 badge pops into the air, marking the brutal downfall of yet another stepping stone. Staring down at the trash piled at his feet, Leonard just knows the Cardenas bloodline is holding some dark secrets he needs to unpack. But wait, a new challenger approaches. Recruit number 98 steps up, crying about Leonard acting too cocky and demanding a fair fight. Is that so? Leonard mutters as pitch-black energy wraps around him. With zero hesitation, he goes full beast mode, promising to give number 98 exactly the beatdown he asked for. The shockwave echoes like a gunshot off the walls, and it is wraps in seconds. Leonard was basically just playing with his food the whole time, effortlessly snatching the number 98 badge right off the kid's chest, way up high, peering from a window. A masked stalker watches the whole slaughter with a creepy smile, totally obsessed with the ridiculous power Leonard had been hiding. But Leonard just slightly tilts his head toward the glass. His senses are so cracked he felt that stare from a mile away. The creeper. It's none other than Saul, the head honcho in charge of keeping tabs on the apprentices. Saul wraps up his briefing with a massive smirk, totally hyped that this training cycle is about to go off the rails. As Leonard struts away, now officially flexing rank 98, absolute panic rips through the corridors. A messenger sprints past, losing his mind, and screaming that William ordered a massive hit on the fresh number 98. Chilling in the cut and watching this whole circus unfold is Verita Cardenas, the elite rank 2. A stunning blonde with razor-sharp eyes, she instantly clocks that the crazy rumors about this kid are legit, especially with William's goons knocked out cold and littering the floor. Bam. Another recruit gets sent straight into orbit by a savage high kick from Leonard, who just keeps bulldozing forward without missing a beat. The wrecked opponent coughs up one last desperate plea for Leonard to join their crew. But Leonard, he's about to end this man's whole career. With a lightning-fast uppercut, he shatters the defenses of recruit number 25, launching the guy skyward and ripping the shiny badge right off his chest. Before the dude can even eat dirt, Leonard easily snags the emblem midair. "I'll just take this," he deadpans, leaving the former number 25 squirming in the dust, totally cooked. As the smoke clears, Verita Cardenas glides over, looking flawless, hyping up his insane leap to rank 25. Leonard shoots her a super suspicious glare, but she doesn't even flinch, flexing that she has literal X-ray vision, allowing her to see way past the surface level. With this busted hack, Verita scopes out Leonard's insane physical build and the pulsing golden aura practically vibrating through his veins. She points straight at the number 25 badge in his fist, giving massive props to his unreal talent. Right then it clicks for Leonard. Homegirl has clairvoyance, the mythical mind's eye. It's a cheat code so stupidly rare it totally explains why she's sitting at number 2 in the clan. With total curiosity, Verita grills him on why he's beefing with the concept of teamwork, dropping the harsh truth that the upcoming joint raid is literally impossible to survive solo. But boom, they get interrupted by the ice-cold arrival of William Cardenas, casting a massive, terrifying shadow over Verita. He aggressively trashes her for leaking top-tier intel about the clan's royal bloodline. Down below, pinned under William's heavy combat boot, the crushed recruit whimpers in agony, totally helpless. The number 1 boss ruthlessly roasts his own squad, calling them absolute garbage for choking on an easy mission to pin down one single dude. Leonard sizes the big boss up, feeling the suffocating deadly kill aura radiating off William. But guess what? Leonard doesn't budge an inch. Refusing to be punked by the top dog, their eyes lock in an intense stare-down. William hits him with heavy sarcasm, sneering that the rookie took forever to finally show his face. Not sweating it at all, Leonard flexes that his tank is still full, daring William to throw down right here, right now. A massive vein pops on William's forehead at the sheer disrespect. He aggressively hisses at the kid to watch his mouth and realize exactly whose yard he's playing in. Suddenly, Verita busts out laughing, completely shattering the heavy vibe. She looks at Leonard like he's an absolute legend, amazed that nobody has ever had the guts to disrespect the number 1 straight to his face. She totally kills the beef, suggesting they bounce, reminding the boys that the real bloodbath drops tomorrow, and Leonard clearly isn't here to play squad games. William finally backs off, playing it cool by claiming he only bothered showing up to fact-check the hype around the new number 25. But before dipping out, he drops one last toxic threat. Leonard better pray he survives long enough to regret catching his attention. Leonard brushes off the timeout without breaking a single sweat. His glowing red eyes stay locked on the back of the clan's tyrant. He knows the elites are trying to herd them into weak little cliques, but he's out here on his own solo grind. Next morning, as the sun creeps up, the vibe is insanely tense for the joint survival test. Deep in the woods, Bruno the hardcore drill sergeant pulls his crew together for a debrief. Turns out while everyone else grouped up, there's one wildcard breaking the entire system. Recruit 25 Leonard Cardenas Corleone is dead set on running this raid 100% solo. This whole thing is a brutal battle royale inside the massive, deadly Cardenas Great Forest where they gotta hunt, scavenge, and guard their badges from getting snatched. Most kids flock to the big 4 cliques for safety. Squad A is a massive army of 100 sweats backing William. Squad B is riding with the big brain Verita. Squad C is run by a blue-haired girl repping the side branches, and Squad D, that one's controlled by the snaky mastermind, Dylan Cardenas. Even the rejects banded together to form a super desperate Squad E, but Leonard he stands completely on his own as the solo player of Squad F. Packing his gear with an insanely chill, almost alien vibe, Instructor Fruno rolled up, totally tripped out by the kid's bare-bones stash, literally just water and a handful of dry crackers. But Leonard deadpanned that surviving off the grid was the whole point. He already knew this little test was going to crash into a toxic bloodbath over stolen badges. Dylan Cardenas totally crashed the moment. Flexing this painfully fake "I care about you" energy, he warned Leonard that flying solo was a straight-up death sentence. He dangled a spot in his crew, but Leonard instantly clocked his snake energy. Dylan was just hunting for a disposable meat shield. Without even throwing a glance his way, Leonard bluntly told him to kick rocks. Making it crystal clear, he saw right through Dylan's trashy pump-and-dump scheme. When Leonard completely ghosted the demand for an explanation, Dylan's fake nice mask shattered. His face warped into pure, ugly rage, spitting out that it all made sense now. This was exactly why William utterly despised him. Flashing this totally unhinged psycho smirk, Dylan decided if Leonard wouldn't play nice, he'd just have to beat some sense into him. The vibe instantly flipped. Dylan snapped forward, blitzing him with insane speed that would have completely folded any average rookie. Ripping out his blade, he screamed at Leonard to join his squad, unleashing a brutal sweeping slash right at his neck. The cold steel shrieked through the air, shaving literal millimeters from Leonard's face, but our boy moved like a glitch in the Matrix. Dodging the deadly arc with effortless icy grace, Dylan just froze, utterly shook. His absolute best hyper-lethal finisher hadn't even grazed a single strand of Leonard's hair. Tapping into this wild rhythmic footwork, Leonard practically glided across the dirt, leaving Dylan spinning in total confusion. Then with one lightning-fast snap, Leonard threaded a brutal counter right through his wide-open guard, instantly wrecking the guy's stance. Pure panic locked Dylan down. He hadn't sensed a single drop of sweat or killer intent from Leonard. Yet here he was eating dirt in the most humiliating way possible, right in front of the whole audience. But before Leonard could walk off, a massive hand slammed down onto his shoulder, locking him in place. It was Bruno. Even though the instructor was secretly mind-blown by the kid's crazy potential, he barked that this little beef wasn't the actual test yet, though he did grant Leonard the green light to drop in early. Giving a frosty nod, Leonard played it totally cool, flexing zero hype over his win. Inside, though, sirens were blaring. He realized this instructor was an absolute beast. Leonard hadn't sensed the dude's aura creeping up on him at all. Pushing into the sprawling woods, he noticed the zone was crawling with monsters that would have been a total nightmare even in his past life. The Cardenas clan wasn't just hyping themselves up. They really were the apex predators of the continent. He was honestly shook that these kids were unlocking such broken abilities at this young age. Spawning this many top-tier prodigies in one batch, the Cardenas DNA definitely carried some insane dark cheat codes. But honestly, he didn't have time to deep dive into conspiracy theories. He had one mission: lock down a safe zone before the rest of the pack swarmed in. Meanwhile, back at base camp, Bruno demanded the early game stats on the survival test. A scout confirmed the squads were already throwing hands way faster than any previous year. William's Squad A completely skipped the whole base building phase. Instead, they pulled off a savage blitzkrieg right into Squad C, caught totally lacking. Squad C got absolutely deleted in seconds, except for recruit number 3, who barely clutched up and survived. Her entire team got wiped off the server. Bruno had to hand it to William. His aggressive strategy was pure genius. The vet knew their top-ranked rookie wasn't just brute-forcing things. William realized that dragging this out would make looting and feeding his massive squad a total nightmare. By rushing with his heavy numbers on day one, he basically spawn-killed the rival teams before they could even group up. When Bruno checked the radar for squads B and D, he found out Verda and Dylan had instantly teamed up to block William's snowball effect, a super smart split-second call. That put older classes to shame. Bruno then pivoted to Instructor Sen, asking her to spill the tea on the stragglers. Sen, rocking her signature icy blue hair, snapped to attention, but she totally choked up. When she had to drop the intel on recruit number 25, she literally couldn't find the words to start. She'd been ghosting Leonard from the shadows the whole time, watching him roll up on this creepy cavern. Suddenly, she froze dead in her tracks when Leonard casually called out to her. Even with her stealth stats maxed out among the elites, the kid just slowly turned around, super chill, and hit her with, "I've got a question." Her worst fear was locked in. He'd tracked her exact coordinates the entire time. Unbothered, Leonard just strolled right into the dark abyss of the cave, flexing absolute zero fear for whatever boss was waiting inside. Instructor Shen popped out of hiding, demanding to know his endgame. But our guy wasn't backing down. He claimed that cave as his personal VIP lounge for the night. With ice in his veins, he stared her down, asking if the beast crashing in. That cave was just some overgrown Cardenas family house pet. Cue a massive nightmare-fueled dire wolf launching itself straight out of the shadows, going absolutely feral. Shen quickly dropped the lore. This wasn't a wild mutt, it was a genetically trained killer. Basically an impossible boss fight for a solo rookie. She hung back, waiting to see if Leonard was just capping, totally ready to jump in before things got fatal. But suddenly, Bruno's voice buzzed through the comms from HQ, ordering her to stand down and let him cook. This whole deadly encounter, just another part of the exam. Shen laid down the terms, "Zero out the beast in the cave, plus all the loot inside was his personal stash." The beast charged, slamming the ground so hard the whole forest shook. But Leonard just slipped right past it, moving like absolute water. He even threw some shade, saying for a lapdog it actually had some decent moves. Still, there was zero chance he was giving up that premium real estate. The dire wolf locked back in, gearing up for round 2, its growl dropping an octave, while a heavy menacing aura flared up. It unleashed an ear-shattering roar, blasting a massive tornado of leaves everywhere. Leonard caught that pure, unfiltered bloodlust. The monster was totally tweaking past the point of no return. Realizing that playing nice would just drag Shen into a mess, he gripped his blade, ready to end this. Dripping with confidence, he blasted forward, straight up, warning the beast that this was gonna sting. In a blinding flash of pure skill, Leonard caught the wolf perfectly midair, entirely shutting down its massive jaws. He totally manhandled the beast, flexing a god-tier strength that no base-level recruit should ever have. Bam! With one earth-shattering slam, he spiked the massive creature straight into the dirt, completely shattering its killer instinct in a split second. Instructor Shen was left totally shook, watching Recruit 25 absolutely style on the monster, without a single drop of backup. Her mind was racing, seriously questioning if a guy at his rookie stage should be legally allowed to be this OP. Completely ignoring Shen's jaw on the floor, Leonard locked down the cave entrance like a boss. Then right in front of Shen's glitching brain, he casually told the wolf to sit. And the giant Deathbringer literally plopped down like a golden retriever. With a flick of his wrist, he ordered it to stay. Flexing absolute mind and body control over the apex predator, he kept throwing out basic commands, making it roll over and treating the terrifying beast like a regular good boy. The monster literally handed over its paw, 100% broken, and begging for approval. Leonard then turned to Shen, casually asking if he could keep his new pet for the petter. The rest of the survival exam, Shen was totally conflicted. She knew a recruit commanding a dire wolf was a massive red flag, but she finally caved, counting his insane beast-taming flex as a legit personal win. Still, she dropped some heavy nerfs on him 0, using the wolf for direct player versus player combat, only using it as a sick mount and a radar. Leonard took the terms without dropping a single complaint, even when Shen warned him to keep his pet from munching on the other kids. But internally, he was already plotting. He knew this taming hack was going to be massive for the next stages. Realizing it was time to lock in for the real grind, he gave a crisp order to his massive new fur baby. Hitting a split in the dirt trail, Leonard figured they'd min-max their scouting by splitting up. He put the wolf on fetch duty, telling it to snatch up any snacks or shiny loot it snagged along the way. Without dropping a single frame, the beast ghosted into the heavy brush, while Leonard kept pushing through his own dark path in the forest. Meanwhile, on a totally different side of the map, William Cardenas was absolutely trashing his opponents. Smirking, he asked if that pathetic display was really their best. Rank number 1 glared down at the wiped recruits with pure disgust, whining about how such trash-tier weaklings even shared his clan's DNA. Dripping with arrogance, William pocketed all their stolen badges, complaining that his inventory was already way too full for all this loot. He got right in the face of the last dude standing, promising to permanently delete him if they ever crossed paths again. Miles away, the leader of Squad E was grinding his teeth, cursing out their massive skill issue. Even jumping him as a fully synced squad, they literally couldn't land a single hit marker on William. The guy had completely squad wiped them without even sweating. The kid in the yellow coat knew the harsh truth: in this twisted forest they were nothing but free XP. Without a major pivot, they were absolutely cooked, crushed by the pressure of leading. The captain was straight up paralyzed. His crew begged for a game plan, totally aware that one more enemy ambush would wipe them out completely. Swallowing his panic, the leader tried to lock in, pushing everyone to just focus on scavenging for food to stay alive. But that tiny spark of hope vanished when a massive shadowy figure ripped through the bushes. The captain froze in pure terror as a colossal silhouette cut off their only exit. A titangent-sized bear towered on its hind legs, ready to make Squad E its midnight snack. Right when it felt like game over, Leonard materialized out of nowhere, dashing forward with his blade flashing. The beast unleashed a blood-curdling roar, only to get instantly checked by Recruit 25's insane blitz. The Squad E leader's jaw straight up dropped, recognizing the absolute unit who had just saved their lives. With a single, overpowered strike, Leonard slammed the giant beast face first into the dirt, knocking it out cold. He just stood there totally unbothered, his number 25 tag catching the light. Still shook and heavily traumatized, the squad leader snapped. He screamed at Leonard, calling him toxic and demanding to know how much more he wanted to steal from them. Leonard didn't even blink. He wasn't playing the hero. That giant bear was literally just his meal prep for the week. About to dip, he paused for a split second to coldly check if the guy was actually breathing. Still trembling, the captain confirmed he was fine, watching in total awe as number 25 started walking off. Ice in his voice, Leonard made it crystal clear he only stepped in because the vibe was getting way too sketchy. He bluntly added that he was only on this island to grind and level up, not to start beef over some useless tags. The rest of the crew were mind-blown by how insanely fast Leonard was ranking up in the clan. The guy in the yellow jacket finally bowed his head, admitting he totally owed Leonard his life. He dropped a massive, genuine thanks, knowing they would have been wiped instantly without him. Leonard was literally about to say he didn't care about saving them when a heavy vibration completely cut him off. The ground shook, and a wild energy threw the whole squad into fight-or-flight mode. They braced for whatever nightmare the forest was about to spit out. Piercing, glowing eyes broke through the dark, revealing the absolute menace of a dire wolf. Leonard had tamed earlier. The beast casually strolled up, gripping a whole human in its massive jaws, which instantly sent the recruits into an absolute panic, while the others screamed their lungs out. Leonard just dropped a dead serious command: sit. The savage wolf folded instantly, dropping the unconscious body it had dragged back from its hunt. Leonard stepped up to check the loot. Curious about who got wrecked this badly, sweeping his eyes over the battered player, he realized she was the shot caller for Squad C rocking the ultra-rare number 3 tag. The other recruits were totally paralyzed by shock. Seeing a top-tier boss like number 3 get manhandled, like a chew toy, literally broke their brains. Sure, the wolf was pure nightmare fuel, but Leonard's ice-cold vibe and insane aura were 100 times scarier. Shifting his gaze, Leonard zeroed in on a busted-up recruit, noticing his cuts were brutally clean and professional. He wondered internally, was this the work of a beast? Or were the top 2 ranked players already headhunting? Bleeding and battered recruit 438 forced himself onto his feet. Watching the guy push through insane physical damage, Leonard felt a rare spark of respect for his relentless grind. Instead of snatching his tag, Leonard casually tossed the massive carcass of his fresh kill right at them. "Keep it," he threw out coldly. "That's plenty of protein for all of you." The crew was totally stunned by the random carry, but Leonard just dropped one last piece of advice. Stop obsessing over the stupid numbers on their chests. Without dropping another syllable, he faded into the pitch-black woods, his giant white wolf trailing right behind him. Deep into the night, the blue-haired captain of Squad C snapped awake on a makeshift bed. She bolted upright, staring at the starry sky, totally realizing she was stranded in the absolute middle of nowhere. Catching sight of her fully bandaged arms, she was completely mind-boggled, trying to guess who actually bothered to patch her up. "You're finally up." Leonard's deep voice cut through the silence. He stepped right out of the shadows, practically giving her a heart attack. Tossing his heavy cloak to the side, he was completely unbothered by her panic. Survival mode activated, and she threw a wicked lightning-fast roundhouse. But Leonard Bro didn't even blink, blocking the heavy hit with his forearm like brushing off a fly. "Guess those legs are working just fine." He casually dropped, telling her to chill out and save her stamina. She wasn't buying his nice guy act for a second, yelling at him to hand back her badge right now. Leonard just stared back with a total stone-cold poker face. Doing a quick pat-down, she realized her number 3 tag was still clipped right where she left it. Leonard literally hadn't laid a finger on it, completely tuning out her rant. He casually strolled over to the crackling fire. She quietly admitted that he actually saved her skin, but she doubled down, making it crystal clear she wasn't giving up her rank. "I literally never cared about taking it," Leonard clarified, tossing her a chunk of freshly roasted meat. She just stared at him, totally shook, wondering if this dude was for real. Sitting by the flames, Leonard hit her with the ultimate dad line, "Kids shouldn't go hungry." So, she needed to fuel up. She instantly started wolfing down the meal like she had been starving for weeks, while he casually asked what exactly went down with Squad C. She instantly froze up, her vibe dropping, just zoning out into the glowing embers. When he asked if some crazy beast wiped them out, she tightly clenched her jaw, reliving that massive L. It was Squad A she finally spit out, her voice cracking under the heavy weight of total defeat. "They straight up jumped us and deleted my whole team in a flash. It was an absolute wipeout. We were completely helpless." She honestly felt like the most trash-tier leader ever. But Leonard stepped in, breaking down how in heavy team brawls, it is super normal for rookies to totally panic when things get crazy. He pointed out that sudden jump scares and intense mind games seriously mess with inexperienced fighters. Spotting those highly specific slash marks on her arm, Leonard easily pieced together that the number 1 guy, William, was the one who delivered that brutal hit. She nodded, confirming that dude was an absolute beast. With the fire popping in the background, Leonard started sizing up the remaining squads. The girl mentally cursed her terrible RNG. She was fuming that she got completely clapped without even landing one solid punch. Leonard secretly smirked to himself. He actually respected that even after taking such a massive L, she still had that crazy dog in her ready to throw hands. He could just tell that with this kind of insane motivation, she was definitely going to glow up into a top-tier fighter someday, pivoting right back to their game plan. Leonard warned that things were getting highly toxic since Squad B was probably going down next. She instantly pitched the idea of teaming up, but Leonard knew William was way too much of a tryhard to leave any loose ends. That is when he dropped his epic master plan. They were going straight for Squad A's hidden weak spot. She looked totally lost. But Leonard already had the number 1 guy firmly locked in his crosshairs. In his head, he was literally playing 4D chess. Seeing William as the king piece, the ultimate hard carry holding their entire formation together, he broke it down. Their huge advantage came from having a shot caller making instant flawless plays. If they could just shatter that main pillar, the whole 100-man squad would completely tilt into absolute chaos. "If you actually want this W, just let me cook," Leonard stated, looking her dead in the eyes. Letting the crazy strategy sink in, a tiny smirk finally crept onto her face. "Guess that makes you the captain now, huh?" Meanwhile, deep in another part of the woods, a massive mob of Squad A recruits was rolling down the main dirt path. "You guys are dragging a..." icy voice echoed from the front line. William Cardenas was walking with pure main character energy, casually telling his minions there was zero need to rush since they held all the cards. Some random recruit tagged along beside him, but William's eyes were glued dead ahead. "Looks like we are finally about to see some actual payoff," he muttered with this creepy, super chill vibe, his golden eyes intensely glowing as he swept his gaze across the heavy timber, instantly sensing stealth players that the rest of his squad was completely blind to. Without warning, William threw up a closed fist, stopping his entire crew and silently commanding them to gear up for a massive brawl right now. Heavy boots loudly skidded across the dirt, kicking up thick dust clouds while they anxiously waited for his play. William smoothly whipped out his long blade and projected his cold voice straight into the shadows, flexing that while camping in the bushes was cute for bottom tiers, giving up right now would be the ultimate big brain move. "Quit camping and step out," he demanded. The dead silence of the woods instantly turned crazy thick with raw tension. Busting out from the brush, a massive wave of gankers from the rival squads finally showed themselves. "Damn, you actually spotted us," one of them loudly taunted. Dozens of enemy recruits completely boxed in William's crew from every single angle, totally ready to launch a massive coordinated raid to dethrone the #1 boss. William, though, bro wasn't even sweating it. Rolling up with Dylan Cardenas and his elite heavy hitters, William wasn't playing around. Right by his side stood the #2 noble. Dylan totally roasted the ambushers. He smirked, asking if calling themselves dogs wouldn't fit their vibe way better than lions. William glared at the mob like they were actual trash. He scoffed, flexing that anyone with real juice could instantly read the basic thoughts of such pathetic NPCs, and their little master plans weren't even worth the oxygen. Flashing ice-cold daggers, William blasted them for actually having the nerve to stand up to him with their absolute garbage stats. Peeking from the back, the #2 noble flashed a wicked grin. She threw some heavy shade, calling this entire squad an absolute embarrassment to the Cardenas family name. Dylan jumped right in to clown the enemy squad leader. He mocked him, asking if he wasn't the same guy who loved to flex online, calling him way more of a show pony than an actual fighter. "This is what you call real dignity, you useless woman," Dylan screamed, launching himself straight into the mix and officially kicking off the bloodbath. William, Dylan, and #2 blitzed forward with deadly speed, shredding through the first wave of enemies with absolute precision. Even with the big bosses totally wiping the floor with them, the other squads scrambled in full panic mode to bounce back. Their shot callers were shrieking at everyone to push up and totally wreck Squad A. The defense scrambled to hold the line, barking orders for every single unit to stand their ground and keep William from cracking their defense. But the brawl instantly spiraled into a messy, bloody war zone. The screech of clashing blades and brutal screams echoed through the woods. Random attackers were literally getting yeeted into the stratosphere just from the insane impact of William's blows. Pure panic gripped the challengers as they witnessed him absolutely popping off, wondering what kind of god-tier mana output this guy was actually packing. Even the #2 noble was sweating, pushing her stats to the absolute max. She quickly clocked that her target was insane, freakishly fast, and packing massive damage. Her wrists were practically screaming just from parrying his hits. Meanwhile, William just watched the total bloodbath unfold with dead eyes, like he was just speedrunning a game he had completely memorized. What kind of absolute freak is this dude? One of the grunts squealed in terror, watching William brutally fold his teammates like origami. A leather-gloved fist clamped down hard on a sword hilt. It was William, charging up an ultimate attack to completely wipe the enemy front. He threw a glance at Dylan and #2, who thought they had him boxed in. "Did you two seriously team up just to throw these dollar store tricks at me?" he scoffed with pure disgust. Dylan Cardenas was literally fighting for his life, gasping for air. He was completely suffocating under William's insane physical and mental pressure. Then, with one silky smooth, utterly disrespectful combo, William dropped Dylan to the dirt. He instantly deleted Dylan from the match in a split second, spotting what she thought was the ultimate opening. The #2 noble tried to backstab William. "You left yourself wide open," she shrieked, totally high on fake confidence. Rushing in, she hyped herself up, thinking that even for a beast like William, covering a blind spot was impossible. She could practically track every single muscle twitch as he braced to dodge. But then her blood ran absolutely cold. Pure dread hit her when she realized William wasn't even trying to move. She figured out she was totally cooked, but it was way too late. This whole thing was a massive bait from the start. The moment her mistake clicked, William whipped around with godlike speed. He fired off a nasty mana-infused counterslash that completely lit up the woods. He swatted away her rapier with bone-crushing force, stuffing her sneak attack like it was literally nothing. "You're a step up from #4. At least William mocked his voice deadpan. But you caught your slip-up way too late. Their weapons grinded together with a sickening metallic screech. William trashed her so-called special eyes, telling her they were heavily flawed and that, honestly, her attacks looked like they were in slow motion to him. He locked eyes with her, projecting absolute murder intent, and roasted her speed, saying her footwork was literal trash, compared to number 25. He dropped Leonard's name, sounding weirdly obsessed. With one flawless fatal swipe, William shattered the girl's guard. She let out a blood-curdling scream, crashing hard into the dirt, totally wrecked by his raw power. While she lay broken at his boots, her fingers frantically clawing at the dead leaves and dirt. William Cardina stood over her like a raid boss. Flexing his ego, he told her that for someone who talked so much trash, she was a massive letdown and needed to just take the L, staring off into the distance with a frozen killer glare. He boldly declared that he was going to be the one and only undisputed champion of this entire survival exam. You're getting way ahead of yourself. A chilling, dead calm voice echoed right out of the dark tree line. Leonard Cardenas Corleone stepped into the moonlight, casually dragging a completely knocked out student behind him. Dylan and number 2 were literally glued to the dirt, watching in absolute shock. Meanwhile, Leonard, rocking his number 25 badge, strutted in completely unfazed. William just froze, totally stunned by this crazy main character energy crashing his party. Before totally losing his mind, he snapped, screaming at Leonard, demanding to know what on earth he was doing there. Leonard didn't even blink. He shrugged it off, casually saying he wasn't doing anything crazy. He dropped the student, letting him hit the wrecked dirt. Just returning the favor for what you did to my crew, he said with this icy calm that seriously freaked William out. Your crew, William stammered out, forcing a toxic, shaky laugh. He started yelling that a total zero like him didn't even have a real squad. Leonard just locked in. His piercing red eyes didn't even flinch at the screaming. I didn't at first, he admitted, his voice slow and heavy, echoing across the battlefield. The whole vibe instantly shifted. William started sweating, glancing nervously at the tree line as he realized he was losing control of the fight. Suddenly, an absolute tidal wave of low-rankers exploded out of the bushes. Rushing forward with pure rage, Leonard revealed how the so-called trash, the guys everyone looked down on, had officially grouped up for a massive rebellion. These underdog recruits threw themselves into the fight with insane momentum. They were screaming, completely flooding the zone and breaking right through the elite's defenses. As the dust cleared, recruit 438 stood up tall, flexing a golden point badge he had just snatched. We're finally ready with this, he yelled, his voice literally cracking from the hype. He turned back to his totally drained crew, promising them that with this massive loot, they could actually survive and clutch this whole exam. The entire mob of low rankers erupted into cheers, hyping up number 25, the one guy who actually gave them a fighting chance. Leonard and the blue-haired girl walked up to the hyped crowd, making recruit 438 jump out of his skin. Leonard gave this super chill, quick apology for crashing their victory lap. Then he held his hand out to the squad, asking for a legit official team-up. The dude instinctively backed away. Terrified Leonard was just going to steal their points. He started stuttering, saying they were just a weak, tiny squad and teaming up with a beast like Leonard would only drag him down. Leonard shot a sharp look at his blue-haired partner. I told you, stop letting those dumb labels mess with your head, he said with a heavy tone that demanded total respect. He broke it down since they all survived the same brutal Cardenas. Training the gap in their potential wasn't actually that huge. Those numbers on their jackets were just empty tags with zero real value. Recruit 438 was just mind-blown, completely shocked that an elite actually saw them like this. Leonard closed his eyes for a second. He reminded them they all bled the same, carrying this hidden potential just begging to be unlocked. He argued that outside of a few rare freaks of nature, the base stats of every single recruit were basically identical if they actually grinded. Pointing right at the number 3 girl, he dropped a bomb. She was from a side branch family and climbed to the top using nothing but pure iron willpower. Then, putting himself on the spot, he brought up his own insane grind, going from rank 381 to 25 through straight up sweat and grit. Isn't that proof enough that this ranking system is a total joke? He asked. He promised them that only a tiny fraction of guys were genuinely built different, and if they teamed up, they had the raw firepower to absolutely crush the rest of them. When recruit 438 awkwardly mumbled that they lacked more than just physical stats, Leonard shut him down with one hand. He laid it out straight. Their combat skills weren't the issue. It was their mindset. Standing in front of the broken squad, he told them what they really lacked was the guts to bet on themselves. With a stare that literally cut right to their core, he asked if they had ever gone 100% on a goal or pushed themselves to their absolute limit. A fist clenched tight. radiating this crazy new resolve. If you can't believe in yourselves, then I'll believe in you. I promise you can actually win this, Leonard declared. He held out his hand like a true leader, officially asking their squad to link up, with Squad F to completely overthrow the toxic number 1. Snapping back to the absolute chaos of the current fight, the blue-haired girl spearheaded this massive new alliance. Push forward. For number 25, who actually believed in us. The recruits roared as they absolutely sent it into the war zone. Standing on top of a massive boulder, she stared straight down at William. Dylan and Rank 2 were suddenly boxed in by the exact same underdogs they used to treat like total garbage. William totally lost it, aggressively trashing her for sinking so low just to babysit a bunch of hopeless noobs. But right on cue, Leonard casually stepped up behind her. His heavy aura was absolutely suffocating, radiating massive boss energy. The Rank 3 girl just flashed a wicked smirk. She gladly reminded the haters that Leonard had already completely humbled her in battle, casually catching her absolute best kick with one bare hand like it was nothing but a joke. She warned them that the reflexes of Rank 25 were on a whole different level, way deadlier than anything they could ever pull off. William's face practically steamed, turning totally crimson from holding back his explosive anger. I didn't team up with some random scrub, she taunted. I backed an absolute beast whose raw power easily clears anything you guys have ever witnessed. Right nearby, a squad of lower-ranked recruits actually managed to body one of William's top lieutenants. Check that out, she mocked with a grin. My underdog squad is literally schooling your so-called elites right now. Right in the thick of this wild brawl, the wealthy Rank 2 girl pulled a move literally nobody saw coming. She threw her head back and just started cracking up, dropping straight to her knees right in front of Leonard. Flashing a clever smirk, she announced that she finally got the memo. Throwing her pride out the window, she instantly surrendered and begged for a spot on Leonard's Squad F. Leonard just coldly shifted his eyes over to Dylan Cardenas, who wasted absolutely zero time eating the dirt too. Knowing he was completely outmatched by Leonard's insane pressure, Dylan let out a super salty chuckle. He flat out admitted he would much rather pledge his total loyalty to Leonard than stick around just to get entirely clapped by a guy he used to treat like total dirt. Meanwhile, William Cardenas just stood there, his face completely twisted in deep embarrassment and absolute, blinding rage over his entire team switching up on him. You spineless snakes, he screamed aggressively, aiming his blade at his old crew, demanding to know if they had zero respect left for their bloodline. Leonard chilly clapped back that literally everyone on the field shared that exact same family tree, telling him to stop crying and just hold his massive L. Standing perfectly unfazed while William threw a massive tantrum, Leonard just quietly watched the sunlight cut through the forest canopy. Shaking with anger, William locked his blade directly on him, daring him to gamble the entire fate of Squads A, G, and F on one single one-on-one showdown, with his eyes practically glowing with pure malice. William barked that he was about to give Leonard a brutal reality check about the massive gap in their stats, warning him not to even think about dodging this fight. A super confident icy smirk flashed across Leonard's face. He calmly whispered back that he had been baiting this exact head-to-head clash since the very start. Without breaking eye contact, Leonard slowly slid his blade from its scabbard with this insanely smooth, hypnotic rhythm, coldly dropping the mic by saying that, honestly, he was the one who should be warning William about the crazy gap in their levels. Engulfed by these sick trails of golden aura bleeding out from his battle stance, Leonard braced for the heavy impact, looking completely unbothered, basically daring William to take the first swing. Meanwhile, posted way up high, Bradley was heavily monitoring the arena. He knew exactly what was up. This insane showdown between Rank 1 and Rank 25 was straight up the true final boss fight of the whole exam. The hype was literally off the charts. Every single recruit was holding their breath, waiting to see if William was going to guard his crown, or if this dark horse was about to drop the biggest upset of the century. William instantly exploded forward, throwing a massive first strike backed by pure, bone-snapping momentum that would have totally deleted any normal player. But Leonard completely tanked the pressure, standing his ground like a brick wall. Their heavy blades crashed together in a massive shockwave. Sparks absolutely sprayed everywhere, as William quickly proved exactly why he was the clan's absolute best, unleashing a brutal combo of lightning-fast thrusts. Leonard instantly clocked that Rank 1 was absolutely not your average mob. Every single parry sent this insane heavy shockwave echoing right up his arms, feeling like his bones were literally about to snap. William just glared down at him, looking totally bored and mega arrogant, spamming an aggressive chain of attacks that gave 0 frames to even breathe. Even while eating those super heavy hits, Leonard kept his cool and mentally scanned his enemy. He noticed that while William's damage output was totally insane, his attack patterns were actually super predictable. But out of nowhere, a crazy surge of glowing blue aura wrapped around William, shifting his stance into a wild new move that completely threw off the whole rhythm of the fight. Leonard's eyes totally locked in as a bizarre blade angle came flying at him, entirely breaking the round physics of how any normal sword user should move. Watching from the sidelines, Bradley had to admit that the sheer skill level of this clash was completely blowing all of his early stats out of the water. In a literal fraction of a second, Leonard barely slipped past a nasty horizontal slash. That one swing would have instantly game overed him right on the spot if he had lagged even a millisecond. The observing knight just watched completely deep in thought. Watching a totally traitless rookie go toe-to-toe with the absolute rank one was a crazy glitch in the Matrix you almost never see. William wasn't just brute forcing this with raw muscle. Leonard could feel this wild invisible weight heavily buffing both his enemy's arms and his swinging blade at the exact same time. The massive secret was finally out. The Rank 1's ultimate hidden cheat code was pure telekinesis. This dude's invisible power made him totally OP in close combat. William rushed in, spamming a wild combo of slashes, bending physics to strike from angles that would literally snap a normal human spine. But Leonard, he just stayed ice cold. Those glowing red eyes tracked every single energy shift, just waiting to drop the ultimate counterattack. Suddenly a blade whipped out from a totally impossible blind spot. Blocking it should have been 0% doable. William kept glitching reality, channeling every ounce of his telekinetic muscle. His arms bulged, unleashing a shockwave so heavy, it literally cracked the air. This wasn't normal swordsmanship. This was pure raw cheat code power. William actually paused, low-key, stunned that some rookie had completely downloaded his moveset this fast. The dirt instantly cratered under crushing unseen gravity as William slammed down another bone-crushing strike with his blade. That's when it hit him. Leonard wasn't playing fair either. Number 25 had been nerfing his own stats this whole time. "Why the hell did you hide it?" William screamed, completely triggered that this underdog wouldn't just fold and accept defeat. Leonard just stared back with absolute zero chill, letting his sword do the talking. The clan crest flared up with blazing light as William tried to flex his status as the true undisputed heir. Flashing a cocky smirk, William figured smashing a tough rival would just make his highlight reel even better. Leonard barely dodged a savage horizontal slash that ripped through the air, sliding backward as the sheer force slammed the ground, carving out a massive trench. Yeah, William definitely didn't get his high rank by pure luck. Gearing up for the finisher, he told Leonard not to cry if he ended up in a body bag. But Leonard, he just stood there, dead still, basically daring him to show off the so-called pride of the Cardenas clan. William snapped on his battle mask, wrapped himself in a freezing blue aura, and prepped to dump his entire telekinetic kit. In his head, though, Leonard was cursing his current squishy body. He couldn't risk exposing his overpowered otherworldly abilities just yet, so gripping his basic training sword until his knuckles turned white, he committed to wiping the floor with this guy using nothing but the flawless god-tier combat skills from his past life. His eyes flashed with straight-up killer instinct. The atmosphere literally started vibrating from his insane killing intent, and Leonard dropped low. Kicking up a massive dust storm, he funneled every single drop of stamina into one explosive burst. He blitzed forward like a literal lightning strike. He weaved right through William's invisible kill zones in a lethal high-speed dance. William knew number 25 had god-tier evasion, but he swore Leonard would get caught in his telekinetic blender eventually. "Eat this," William shrieked, spamming a frantic storm of slashes that covered the entire zone. The shockwave annihilated a massive tree nearby, shredding it into literal confetti. But Leonard just glided through the hitboxes. Flipping mid-air, he surfed the momentum of William's own wind attack to secure the high ground. Hiding in the shadows, Dylan and the noble girl were literally shook. It finally clicked why nobody could ever read William's attack patterns. This dude had been weaponizing his powers just to camouflage his actual stats. Dylan straight up called it out as massive cheating. Even so, Leonard moved like an absolute ghost. He dodged every single thrust perfectly, making the bystanders realize something crazy. The person actually smurfing and hiding their true power level, it was number 25. Bradley was completely mind-blown. Leonard was purposely making all these insane dodges look like pure RNG, totally baiting William so he wouldn't realize he was just getting clowned on, like a predator reeling in its dinner. Leonard lined up the ultimate kill shot while William just kept swinging at empty air like a total bot. Pure rage and zero stamina finally broke the former rank 1. The whole squad watching could literally see him sweating bullets. William's blood ran cold. Leonard had just teleported right into his blind spot, locking in the victory. "You're done, number 1, Leonard whispered. Those glowing red eyes basically deleted the entire clan's hierarchy on the spot. Then, boom, A massive blast of golden energy swallowed them whole. Leonard dumped all his stacked kinetic energy into one singular point. The hit was so ridiculously savage. William got launched like a ragdoll. Zero defense, zero chance. He coughed up blood as he slammed into the dirt, absolutely traumatized, realizing he just got completely cooked by a bottom-tier recruit. Leonard just watched him crash with icy perfection, making sure the fight was 100% over. A thick mushroom cloud of smoke and gravel billowed from William's crash zone, completely dead silencing the training grounds. Face planted in the mud, William just stared blankly at his snapped blade and his completely shattered ego, finally processing that he had been fully undeniably defeated. The icy chill of death stared William right in the face. It was a brutal reality check. If this were a real war, Leonard wouldn't have hesitated to end him. No extra lives, no second chances. Leonard casually leveled the tip of his blade inches from William's nose, capping off this legendary clash with an eerie, cold-blooded calmness. The new number 25 just proved that the Cardenas clan rankings were basically a total joke now. William choked out a dry, bitter laugh. He finally swallowed his pride, realizing he was miles out of his league. Surrounded by the dead silence of his squad and the young noblewoman, William officially took the L. He tapped out. The crowd absolutely lost their minds, erupting into pure chaos. They just watched their untouchable number one get folded by the mystery rookie. Bradley stood on the sidelines, completely mind-blown. He never expected a rookie to flex technique that clean. But the biggest plot twist, William actually thanked Leonard for the reality check. It was like the chains of his massive ego had finally snapped. Leonard blinked, caught totally off guard by the vibe switch. The fallen boss actually looked. Peaceful defeat was basically a massive weight off William's shoulders, freeing him from his dad's toxic, suffocating expectations. This duel was his escape route. Leonard studied him with narrowed eyes, trying to compute this sudden character development from his biggest hater. William tossed him a genuine salute of respect, officially killing their beef with a totally unexpected flex of humility. Slumped in the dirt, William admitted out loud, "Man, that was a crazy good fight," putting Leonard's skills on blast for everyone to hear. Leonard let out a massive breath he didn't realize he was holding, feeling the insane battle adrenaline finally drain from his veins. The two fighters locked hands in a solid handshake, cementing their mutual respect, while the rest of the rookies just stared, jaws on the floor. Even the veteran guards hanging in the back were glitching out, unable to process the scene. The absolute lowest tier squad had just dethroned the literal gods of Squad A. A bunch of salty elites groaned in the background, realizing their hype and social credit just tanked with William's loss. Meanwhile, Bradley flashed a smug grin. He knew this wild upset was going to break the system, shattering the clan's hierarchy and forcing a major reboot. Squad F swarmed Leonard, hoisting him onto their shoulders and hyping him up to celebrate surviving the hellish boot camp. Dylan and his buddy broke down the match, realizing these massive underdogs were secretly packing insane potential. The lower-rank recruits went feral, flexing their win over the snobby Squad A, proving that even the so-called trash could secure the bag. Faradli quietly praised Leonard's big brain energy. The kid actually grasped that this boot camp wasn't just about throwing hands. The knight ordered the blue-haired girl to prep for the survivors' epic comeback. But suddenly, an emergency scroll stamped with the main house sigil dropped, announcing the start of the Blood Awakening ceremony. Cut away from the hype, Leonard was chilling deep in the mountains next to his massive snow-white dire wolf. The giant beast let out a sad, whining rumble. It totally vibed that Leonard was clocking out and couldn't bring his furry tank on the next main quest. Leonard locked eyes with his wild partner, flashing a soft, grateful smile to thank the beast for the hard carry. Bathed in the eerie glow of the full moon, man and wolf just sat there soaking in the quiet vibes. Ruffling the wolf's thick mane, Leonard made a hardcore promise. "I'm gonna level up and I will come back for you," he vowed. His grin was sharp and relentless, completely locked in on his future goals. The wolf ripped a massive, echoing howl into the night sky, totally understanding the boss who tamed it. Tracking back down the rocky trail, Leonard shouted over his shoulder, telling his beast to keep grinding so it wouldn't fall behind him. In the future, framed by the silver moonlight, the wolf's shadow stood tall on the cliff edge. A cinematic closing shot for the new number one's origin story. Fast forward to the bumpy carriage ride home. Leonard and William were trapped in the most awkward silence ever. With their social status completely flipped, William kept squirming. He finally cracked and asked why the entire squad decided to crash his specific ride, ignoring the VIP seating rules. The blue-haired girl and the blonde noble just laughed it off, making it crystal clear they were officially repping Leonard as their true captain now. Still, they kept eyeing Leonard like a science experiment. Mind blown that this guy speedran from rank 381 to rank 1 in literally 30 days. Trying to kill the awkward tension, William coughed and dropped some VIP intel about their next training arc. The blue-haired girl immediately started roasting him, joking that Leonard hit him so hard his brain restarted. William instantly flared up, super defensive. Brushing off the trolls, he leaked that, starting tomorrow, the clan was handing out loot drops based strictly on their new leaderboard stats. The chat inside the wagon suddenly got heavy. The crew started stressing over the upcoming Blood Awakening ceremony, the make-or-break event that hardcaps every Cardenas' true potential. William lectured them, explaining their bloodline packed a mutated organ that normal NPCs simply don't have, and it needs this ritual to boot up. Dylan and the noble girl leaned in, eyes wide. It finally clicked for them. That hellish boot camp they just survived, that was barely the tutorial phase. As the wheels rumbled on, they deep dived into the lore. This awakening unlocks god-tier, buttery smooth mana manipulation. Anyone who survives the trial and finishes the starter quests snags the golden ticket to join the ultra-exclusive Order of the Young Dragon Knights. Leonard soaked up the tea on this Black Ops faction, fully knowing this was classified intel kept hidden from the masses. The noble girl chimed in, hyping up how the Order is all about lethal, real-world combat. They run a hardcore curriculum built to min-max every cadet to their absolute limit. When Leonard casually asked if these special organs had different stats for everyone, the squad nodded dead serious. Dylan flexed a magical hologram to explain these things are called monocores. Each core rocks different elemental buffs and spawn rates. The blue-haired girl whispered that even though the clan flexes about having dragon blood, it's honestly a coin toss if it's cap or fax. William cut in, dropping the wildest stat: the fewer cores you spawn with, the more busted your XP gain is. Puffing his chest out, he totally bragged about his own single core, a 1 in a million drop rate that basically makes him a genetic god. The noble girl snorted, telling Leonard not to stress since a single core is literally a once-in-a-decade SSR pull. Leonard just sat back, running the math in his head. The system sounded suspiciously exactly like the cultivation hacks he spammed in his past life as the legendary Sword Emperor. The blonde girl started geeking out over a myth, the insane concept of a player hatching with 5 cores covering all 5 basic elements. William shut that down, explaining that every extra core literally doubles your mana costs. Trying to balance them during training is pure torture. A glowing graph popped up in the air showing your leveling speed totally tanking the more cores you hold. It basically brands multi-core users as trash-tier garbage. Having 5 cores, absolute nightmare fuel. You'd need 25 times the loot to even level up once. William smirked, looking smug when Dylan roasted him for zoning out during the actual theory lectures. The girls giggled, teasing that with William's brute force tank build, he didn't exactly need a big brain anyway. Leonard, though, he was scheming. He realized that if his past life cheat codes worked on this server, rolling multiple cores might just be his ultimate ticket to becoming a broken, unkillable raid boss. Dylan sighed, admitting that while a pentacore user would theoretically have maxed out base stats, farming the materials to keep them alive was practically 0%. Leonard silently prayed for a triple core drop. A single core would just bait way too much toxic aggro from the clan's higher-ups. Smash cut to the Grand Awakening Hall. Leonard stood front and center as the system flashed his final test results. For everyone to see, he rolled a pentacore. The entire room completely lost it. The crowd groaned, totally crushed, that this absolute sword god was cursed with the worst garbage-tier bloodline in the game. Leonard dipped out to a VIP lounge in the palace, trying to compute that the clan now saw him as a glitch in the Matrix. He ruffled his hair, groaning out loud. He definitely got the server's attention, just in the absolute worst way for his low-key grind. Out of nowhere, his danger sense screamed. His glowing red eyes locked onto a blur, blasting straight for his throat, moving like an absolute glitch. Leonard phased through a barrage of ghost-like slashes that absolutely shredded the royal floor tiles into dust. He stared at the cratered marble beneath his boots, wincing. Okay, maybe dodging that fast was a bit too much of a flex. A heavy gray-armored fist, dripping with toxic green mana, materialized out of thin air, calling off the ambush. Commander Fabian stepped out of the shadows, his terrifying aura flooding the room, his blood-red cape dragging through the debris as he locked lasers with the kid. Stomping forward like an absolute boss, the head of the Dragon Knights closed the distance. Fabian wasn't holding back, he straight-up acknowledged the crazy speedrun of this former low-tier scrub. Fabian scanned Leonard's battle stance, completely mind-blown by how chillingly smooth he moved without even a drop of sweaty bloodlust. Leonard gripped his wooden sword tight. Real technique is an art you build on the inside long before you start swinging, he stated flatly. The commander just gave a slow, heavy nod. In the kid's cold words, he found that's a deep truth most veteran fighters totally forget. Out of nowhere, Fabian just leaned back and let out this massive booming laugh. He was legitimately hyped by Leonard's raw guts and zero-filter attitude. Meanwhile, Leonard just stood there, a single bead of sweat sliding down his face, watching this absolute unit of a man completely lose it over his sheer audacity. Talk about instant respect. Fabian then dropped the formalities, introducing himself as a legit swordmaster. He swore on his name and title that he'd personally sponsor Leonard's epic glow-up inside the clan. Everyone in the room literally dropped their jaws. The commander straight up handed Leonard top-tier recruit status, promising him the absolute VIP treatment. But then, this silver-armored knight slid up to Fabian, whispering some seriously stressful news about the massive drawbacks of having a pentacore. Fabian wasn't having it, though. He shut that down with a wall-shaking roar. With zero hesitation, the commander basically said raw talent gets backed no matter what biological rules they break. Shutting up immediately, the subordinate handed Leonard this crazy rare dimensional bag, stuffed with literally everything he'd need to survive out there. Fabian looked Leonard dead in the eye and told him, since he's a premium recruit, now the real grind is just starting. Honestly, how are the other elite rookies gonna react when this walking red flag of an anomaly gets publicly hyped up by the Dragon Knight commander himself? Thanks to his new VIP status, Leonard scored the ultimate flex, picking his own training path. Fabian walked him into this massive, breathtaking hall packed with glowing magic portals. Every single door was a one-way ticket to a totally different, absolute nightmare of a training zone. The commander broke it down. Usually the order forces a student into a specific zone based on their base stats. But Leonard had earned the right to pick his poison. Without even blinking, Leonard looked up and demanded to know which zone had the craziest loot to match his actual potential. Fabian, he was living for this kid's savage energy. He flat out declared that if you aren't ready to embrace the pain, you don't even deserve to call yourself a warrior. Pointing straight at one specific, ominous gate, he ordered Leonard to hit up Carabagos. Guys, this was literally the most isolated island in the entire empire. We're talking zero civilization, completely off the grid. Fabian hit him with a reality check. The vibe there is so toxic that even freshly minted knights end up crying for their moms. Whole chunks of the island are basically demon realms crawling with nightmare fuel monsters. Leonard didn't even flinch. He just slapped his hand against the portal, thanking Fabian for the ultimate hookup. He knew the world thought training 5 cores was straight up impossible because nobody knew how to balance that kind of chaotic energy. But he had a massive cheat code. His big brain play forced all 5 elements to sync up perfectly. If he could level them all up at the exact same time, he'd basically become a walking god. This was his golden ticket to absolutely shatter the limits of his past life. Stepping through that barrier of light, a blinding flash totally wiped Leonard's vision. When his eyes finally adjusted, he was staring down a hyper-dense, creepy-as-hell jungle that literally sounded like it was whispering to him, "Welcome to Carabagos." But hold up, before he could even take one step forward, a voice called out from the pitch-black shadows. It was Bradley, and he was low-key shook by Leonard's stealth. The guy straight up admitted he didn't hear a single footstep from the kid. Bradley quickly introduced himself as a senior, Knight of the Order of Young Dragons, and the guy running this nightmare island. He started leading Leonard to meet the rest of the squad, dropping some quick advice. Sure, everyone here is still a trainee, but maybe show a tiny bit of respect to the upperclassmen. Though he totally gave off the vibe that in this lawless wasteland, manners didn't mean jack. Bradley then broke down the survival rules. Second-year students were strictly banned from bullying the fresh meat. So 0 reasons to panic. The game plan: Leonard gets to chill under Bradley's protection for 6 solid months. After that, he's tossed to the wolves for 100% hardcore solo survival training. Food and a roof over his head, yeah, that's entirely on Leonard. But because of his VIP status, Bradley hooked him up with a private cabin and tossed him a supply bag, warning him not to blow through his spirit stones like an idiot. But when Leonard casually asked how much this loot was actually worth, Bradley peeked inside the bag and literally froze like a statue. Guys, it was packed with 3,000 low-grade spirit stones and 100 insanely rare elixirs for every single attribute. That is an absolutely astronomical flex that even the #1 draft picks never see. The commander was basically going all in on Leonard's glow-up. Shaking it off, Bradley explained that spirit stones are basically mana-packed batteries used to supercharge your internal energy flow. He pointed out that with a stash this massive, a basic rookie could easily skyrocket 10 levels. Heck, even a cursed pentacore user could hit level 5 without breaking a sweat. Just to set the stakes, Bradley gave him a quick crash course on warrior power scaling. Basically, the power system is broken into 5 major realms, each packed with 10 mini-stages. Realm 1. Body Temperance. It's all about grinding your physical stats and stretching out your internal mana pool. Realm 2 is External Strength. This is where things get flashy and you start blasting out your mana as a literal battle aura. Then comes the third realm, Transcendence. This is where a fighter locks in their absolutely unique, one-of-a-kind fighting style. Level 4. The Demigod Realm. Your spirit straight up hacks your mind and your sheer willpower starts glitching reality itself. And finally, Bradley dropped the lore on the 5th level, the realm of divinity. At this point, you're not even human anymore, you're basically a living god. He pointed at this epic mural of a golden armored dude crushing a dragon, explaining that while it's the absolute level cap, nobody since the Cardenas clan founder has actually hit it. Bradley got super defensive here, snapping about how some clueless haters try to call the founder a fake myth, which he took super personally. Wrapping up the lore dump, he barked at Leonard to start grinding his mana immediately by sucking the juice out of those stones. He made it sound like a total breeze. "Just absorb and get buff," he said before slamming the cabin door shut. Now Leonard was totally alone with his thoughts and this absolute mountain of premium loot. He stared down at the glowing stones scattered all over the floor, realizing the air in this cabin was ridiculously heavy with raw mana. Honestly, just breathing in this room was giving him XP. The real boss fight wouldn't be finding energy. It was going to be way more insane than that. He had to tame the wildly violent clashing energies of 5 different cores without letting them straight up nuke his physical body. Sucking up the energy wasn't the hard part. If anything, it was a feeling Leonard was hyped to experience all over again. A sly, super confident smirk crept across his face as the sun went down. You see, this exact grind, he had already maxed it out to absolute perfection in his past life. As night dropped, he locked in, meditating perfectly under the cold moonlight, spilling through the cracks. But honestly, even he was absolutely floored by how fast his stats were spiking. He started questioning if this kind of speedrun was even physically normal past life experience or not. In literally just a few hours, he had already blasted straight to the 3rd stage. At this crazy pace, he was dead sure he'd hit stage 5 in under 24 hours. He flopped onto the floor to catch his breath, smirking at how his old memories made this so-called hardcore training feel insultingly easy. But wait, he knew if he maxed everything out in 24 hours, it would spark massive red flags and draw way too much heat regarding his broken talent. Fabian already treated him like a once-in-a-lifetime prodigy. He had to play this smart and keep his true power level under wraps. So he figured if he spent time grinding his old combat techniques, he could totally cover up his crazy level-ups and make his progress look way more natural. Fast forward 1.5 months. Outside his cabin, a bunch of random recruits were just staring at his door, totally weirded out and kind of amazed. They couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that Leonard was still ghosting everyone, not stepping outside a single time. One of them joked that he was probably hardcore camping in there, trying to hit stage 5 just to avoid dying in the wild. Eventually, they got bored of being fanboys and dipped to go fishing, complaining about wasting time hyping up a newbie. As they wandered off, they started stressing over their trash loot drops, whining that they'd have to burn their precious spirit stones if they didn't catch dinner soon. They joked about how they'd probably lose to a low-level mob, completely admitting that on this cursed island they were straight-up bottom-tier trash. Then, out of nowhere, the cabin door squeaked open. Leonard finally touched grass, letting out this heavy, exhausted sigh. After basically living like a hermit, he fixed his collar locked in and decided it was time to hunt Bradley down to demand some legit steal. Cut to this massive open forest under a crazy bright sky. The knight spotted him and instantly hit him with the sarcasm, mockingly asking why on earth a squishy rookie would need a real sword. Leonard just deadpanned, saying he needed to get used to the weight of real metal. To Bradley, this kid sounded insanely arrogant, acting tough just because he leveled up a bit. But then with zero warning, Leonard absolutely launched a catastrophic strike. Boulders shattered and dust exploded everywhere. Bradley was left completely paralyzed by this monstrous flex of raw, savage power. He was screaming internally, how the hell did a cursed pentacore user blast to stage 3 in just 1 month? Okay, sure, the glow-up was cracked, but Bradley wasn't having it. He instantly unleashed this suffocating blood-red aura to put the rookie back in his lane. His shadow warped into this terrifying massive demon with piercing glowing eyes, growling at the kid not to get a big head over one tiny speedrun. Leonard was actually caught off guard by his senior's sudden psycho mode and the crushing gravity of his killing intent. Just as fast, Bradley snapped back to chill mode and casually tossed him a sheathed sword. The knight told him to chill out, it was just a warning shot. He basically said, "Don't do anything stupid with this, bro." Leonard gave a quick nod of thanks. But before dipping out, the knight dropped a heavy reminder, lose or break this sword, and he'd be paying up with his rare spirit stones. Bradley flashed a glowing rock just to flex the price tag. Leonard gave him the universal, "I got it" look. The knight finally bounced, wishing our boy good luck for the crazy grind ahead. Real steel in one hand, map in the other, Leonard was locked in for Phase 2. He stepped straight into the Forest of Remnants. This place wasn't a joke. It was literally marked in red as a massive danger zone on the clan's radar. Deep in the shadows, the locals were already waking up. They caught his scent. A whole squad of E2 ranked hobgoblins, Your basic starter zone trash mob started creeping in. But Leonard he didn't even hesitate. With one clean flash of steel, he absolutely painted the dirt with the first mob's blood. He strolled through the woods like he owned the place. He knew one thing though, a clean kill still bleeds, and blood brings more aggro. Moving like a straight-up ghost. He didn't even snap a twig. "This'll be fast," he muttered. He just sliced through a whole mob with one insane, perfectly timed combo. As they dropped, their life force literally crystallized into these tiny glowing gems. Premium spirit stones. Leonard watched the monster's mana pack itself into this must-have loot for his leveling up. Getting 100 low-tier stones a day, not a bad daily grind. But honestly, that wasn't going to cut it for his massive goals. This forest was basically a trash bin for low-level scrubs that barely survived natural selection. Then, out of nowhere, Leonard's spider sense went crazy. He whipped his head toward the bushes. Something sounded wrong. The smell hitting him was way heavier, way more aggressive than those weak little goblins. A gnoll, he thought, genuinely hyped. His grip choked the sword hilt as he felt the heavy thud of a real boss-level threat flanking him. The beast blitzed around him, flexing its raw killer instinct. To this thing, Leonard was just a snack. "You are heavily underestimating me," Leonard whispered, eyes dead cold, bracing for the impact. His red eyes flared up like brake lights. He mentally dared the beast to pull up. Boom! A massive shockwave ripped through the trees as the ultimate showdown kicked off. The gnoll, this hulking ripped wolfman, went full feral, swinging a busted stone axe. It smashed into the dirt, launching rocks and dust everywhere like a grenade. The raw power was actually insane, but Leonard, he just sidestepped it. He was dodging with this graceful, almost disrespectful swagger. Not a single speck of dirt on his drip despite the absolute chaos. "Shut up, you mangy mutt," he scoffed. His voice was totally deadpan while the beast was basically foaming at the mouth. The monster screamed in pure rage, realizing its ultimate one-shot move caught straight air. Leonard caught the next swing, the bone-rattling shockwave vibrating all the way up his arms. Parrying that kind of raw strength took insane god-tier timing. Riding the monster's own momentum, he vaulted right over its head, completely dodging its nasty claws. Right then, he decided to just enter Ultra Instinct mode and dodge it all. His eyes scanned the zone. This beast was literally nuking the ground with every step. Wait a minute, something wasn't clicking. This thing hit way harder than the basic gnolls in the wiki. Running the stats in his head, a goblin is Eoni. A hobgoblin is E2. A regular gnoll should be Eoni, tough, but doable for a noob. But this guy, its speed and damage output were totally breaking the scaling system. Then it hit him. Sometimes monsters hit an awakening phase and evolve into crazy mutant variants. This wasn't an E rank. This was a D3A. Cocky smirk crept onto Leonard's face. Now we're talking. Instead of panicking, he saw a glowing opportunity to test drive his OP new body. He popped off, wrapping his sword in a blinding flash of blue mana energy. He unleashed an absolute blur of speed thrusts. Dashing in, he heavily punished the beast's laggy, slow attack animations with brutal counters. No way a sloppy swing like that. He smirked, literally parkouring over the giant axe handle as it cratered the ground. Is ever gonna touch me? The gnoll was just wildly swinging at ghosts now. In a split second, Leonard teleported behind it, slicing a massive critical hit right down its spine. Sparks literally flew as his steel clashed against the monster's tanky, iron-like skin. Completely losing its mind, the gnoll flared up with this blood-red aura, charging up its ultimate move, but the massive axe just whiffed, burying itself deep in the dirt. Major mistake, and Leonard capitalized instantly. The beast overcommitted to its heavy attack, leaving its guard wide open. With one smooth cinematic spin, Leonard dashed in. The monster couldn't even process what was happening. Leonard's red eyes locked onto the vital hitbox for the finisher. Try blocking this, he thought, staring dead into its ugly face. With one flawless, deadly slash, he straight up deleted the gnoll. The fight was over in a literal blink. As the spooky silence rolled back into the forest, drowning out the hype battle, Leonard stopped to check his drops. Yo, jackpot. The beast dropped a ridiculously pure spirit stone. Weighing it in his hand, he realized it was a mid-tier gem, literally worth 100 times more than the basic ones. As the monster's body glitched out into dust, he realized how crazy fast he could level up if he just farmed these mini-bosses. Totally satisfied with the XP gain, he walked away like a boss. Cut to his cabin, where a sick blue neon glow was leaking through the windows. Leonard was in deep meditation, actual mini tornadoes of energy swirling around him. He stared at his hands, kind of shook that he'd already speedrun his way to level 10 of body tempering. But leveling up this fast in just a few months, that was going to put a massive target on his back. He desperately needed a way to grind resources without looking suspicious. Suddenly, footsteps outside. It had been 3 whole months since he went into ghost mode, and the senior guys were loudly complaining about having to check up on him. One dude was preaching that in the Cardenas clan, networking was literally survival. Bro, one good connection easily beats some trash-tier noble title. They even gossiped that the top commander was secretly watching the new kid. One of the older guys shoved Hayden, a senior student, telling him to go do the dirty work. Hayden awkwardly walked up, carrying a literal bucket of fish. "Hey kid, you still breathing in there?" he called out, peeking through a crack in the wood like a worried mom. Hiding in the pitch black, Leonard just watched him, suddenly realizing something. His upperclassmen, they were actually kinda wholesome in their own weird way. Locking eyes on Hayden's face through the crack, a 200 IQ idea clicked. If he just shapeshifted into a hard-stuck veteran who hadn't leveled up in 10 years, absolutely nobody would question his power levels. He sat back down and queued up an ancient skill he hadn't used in forever. Gripping his head, he focused his mana and activated Reverse Craft. It's a crazy disguise hack that literally reshapes your facial muscles and bone structure. His face started melting and shifting like clay under his fingers. Sitting under the moonlight, Leonard chuckled at the irony, having to catfish his own guild just to hide how OP he was. He checked his hands again, knowing the disguise was 100% locked in. Now looking like a total Hayden clone, he decided to ride this fake identity for a good minute. Fast forward 3 months, we cut straight to the Bone Mountain Swamp. This place is pure nightmare fuel wrapped in thick fog. Suddenly a blur of speed rips through the weeds, sending birds flying. It's Leonard, speedrunning the swamp, repeating his golden rule: stay absolutely stealthy to survive. He moves with icy precision. He knows this swamp is basically spawn camp city for highly toxic ambush predators. He posts up on a thick branch, staring down at the creepy lizard men patrolling the muddy water below. Leonard grips his sword mentally, sizing up their scaly armor against his previous kills. Then bam, he triggers a massive burst of speed, literally snapping the tree branch as he dive bombs into the action. He drops from the sky like a meteor, landing dead center on a submerged lizard man. The absolute one-tap. The monster gets deleted before its brain even registers the threat. Leonard lands perfectly on the corpse as blood explodes across the murky water. Oops. Might have been too loud. He smirked, realizing he just woke up the literal boss of this zone. A colossal, hulking lizard man stomps out of the fog holding a massive, jagged wooden spear. The raid boss screams, its yellow eyes locked onto Leonard with absolute rage, ready to defend its turf. But Leonard, he blocks the spear, thrust like it's nothing. He smirks, noting that yeah, the boss has speed, but its attack patterns are totally predictable. Suddenly, his whole body erupts in an insane blue aura. Our boy is literally about to break his level cap and ascend to a new tier of power, all while still rocking Hayden's face. Our guy realizes he's completely maxed out his current tier. He knows there's zero chance he can hold back the crazy mana burst that comes with leveling up, so he starts weaving through the swampy woods, hunting for a totally off-the-grid spot to let his energy pop off unseen while ducking the rain. Leonard eventually trips over what looks like a secret farming spot, completely tucked away in the deepest part of the wild. He stops dead. His jaw drops at this massive patch of spirit herbs chilling right outside a cave entrance. These plants soak up mana way better than any basic crystal, and there is a ridiculous amount of them just sitting there. But hold up, this turf is definitely claimed. Standing guard by the cave is an absolute unit of a troll looking totally menacing. The monster drops into a heavy fighting stance, snarling as it catches wind of a trespasser crashing its zone. Leonard ducks for cover in a flash, clocking that another heavy hitter is rolling up. Out of nowhere, a literal lightning bolt smashes down from the sky, announcing a brand new challenger. A savage lycanthrope just dropped in to straight up test the troll's boss status. This wolf beast darts around with insane speed, smoothly dodging all the junk getting blasted into the air. The troll swings heavy, trying to flatten it, but the wolf is completely wrapped in electricity and way too slick to get tagged. Lan just watches mind blown as the lycanthrope packs nature's raw energy into every single hit. He realizes that even monsters can bend the elements if their power level is high enough. The troll claps back by tossing massive boulders, ripping up tons of dirt and rock with pure brute strength. But the lycanthrope just keeps sidestepping at literal lightning speed, bouncing between the trees. As these two titans crash into an explosive mix of energy and rock, they let out shrieks of pure rage, proving neither is about to hand over the forest. Realizing this brawl is going to drag out, Leonard spots the ultimate decoy. Totally using the chaos to his advantage, he sneaks straight toward the cave entrance while the heavyweights are busy throwing hands. He figures that while they're busy shredding each other outside, he can raid whatever secrets are stashed inside. If a top-tier troll is playing bouncer at the door, there has to be some crazy loot waiting. He ghosts his way in, noticing how the booming sounds of the turf war outside start to mute. After walking just a few feet, it goes dead silent. It is the absolute perfect spot to trigger his level up. But suddenly, he hits the brakes hard. A crazy golden glow lights up the back of the cavern. Right in front of him is this mythical tree glowing with a warm, pure mana vibe, completely surrounded by mid-tier spirit herbs. He actually wonders if the big guy outside was the one farming all this. But his fighter instincts are screaming that something is sketchy. The mana is so OP he definitely should have sensed it from outside. Reaching his hand out, he catches a weird buzz in the air, exactly like hitting an invisible force field. The second he touches it, a glowing hex pattern flashes into view, exposing a super heavy-duty magic ward. It clicks for him. This shield was rigged up specifically to mask all this insane energy from the outside world. This golden tree is an absolute masterpiece, and Leonard is totally tripping over what kind of mythical drop this could be. He steps up to one of the golden leaves, totally hyped by how flawlessly pure the mana running through it is. He knows for a fact these are top shelf materials, and that the brainless troll probably has zero clue about the actual value of its own stash. Leonard gets ready to finally kick off his level up, but his danger radar violently spikes. The troll is back inside. It is completely dripping from the fight and looking absolutely furious. The monster rushes him with a burst of speed that makes zero sense for something that bulky. Because the cave completely jammed all the sound and mana tracking, Leonard totally missed that the turf war outside had already wrapped up. Lucky for our boy, the brute is seriously nerfed from boxing the lycanthrope. Leonard spots that the massive gashes across its chest haven't even patched up yet. The totally triggered beast dives in, trying to one-shot the kid into the dirt, but Leonard rips out his blade and locks in with zero distractions. The troll ends up smashing the cave entrance instead, triggering a massive collapse that completely dead-ends the exit. Leonard just smirks like a boss. If the big guy just blocked the only way out, it practically just signed its own game over screen. He gets fully dialed in for the brawl, cranking up his mana as he gladly accepts the one-on-one. The air inside the cavern is literally shaking from the insane aura they're both flexing. Giant chunks of rock slam into the dirt, blasting blinding clouds of dust and rubble everywhere. Leonard clocks that the brute finally figured out it can't keep up with his crazy speed, completely flipping its playbook to just spamming massive boulders trying to box him in. Leonard knows getting tagged even once by those rocks would mean an instant wipe. He tracks the troll's every twitch with totally ice-cold sniper-like focus, just waiting for the perfect frame to punish. With his red eyes glowing like lasers, he decides it's time to end this whole raid in a single tap. He bursts forward with god-tier speed, leaving a sick trail of glowing energy right behind him. He's aiming straight for the monster's chest, the exact spot where all its HP seems to be pooling up. But hold on. The troll rips out a deafening roar as a totally suffocating heat wave violently floods the cave. Lan is shook watching a massive flare of elemental energy blow up all over the beast. The rocky plates it was using as armor are literally catching fire now. A brutal aura of pure flame wraps around the Guardian, instantly buffing it into a way more toxic threat. The beast spikes a blazing fist straight into the dirt, triggering a superheated shockwave that literally melts the stone around them, turning the whole floor into a total lava trap. It finally clicks for Leonard why that lycanthrope got folded so fast. This boss was rocking a dual attribute build, a totally insane RNG drop for a monster. Its skin shifts into this blazing, glowing orange, and every single step it takes leaves a completely scorched print on the rock. Leonard pulls back, totally aware that rushing in blindly would send him straight back to the lobby. The heat is so overwhelming he feels like he's going to turn to liquid just being in the same zip code as the beast. He hangs back with stone-cold patience, just waiting for the brute to overcommit to a laggy, heavy swing. The second the troll takes this massively dragged-out step forward, slipping its balance for a microsecond, Leonard spots his window. With a totally silent scream of pure hype, he launches into his ultimate finisher, flashing forward like a streak of golden lightning. He weaves through the blazing flames by literal millimeters, his veins completely jacked on adrenaline and a crazy power trip he hasn't felt in years. Locked right onto the creature's chest, he calls game over, dumping every single drop of his mana straight into his blade. He catches massive air and drops a plunging strike with absolute aimbot precision. The brute lunges to snatch him out of the sky, but our guy's speed stats are just way too high. The steel buries itself deep into the dead center of the monster's chest, completely shutting down its mana network. Leonard feels his blade shred right through the core, 100% convinced that hit was an instant wipe. But then his eyes snap wide open in pure panic when he catches a glowing, neon-red crystal core sitting right inside the gash. The gem starts spiderwebbing with cracks leaking out a stupid amount of pure thermal energy. Leonard clocks the trap way too late. That core is literally about to go nuclear. A blinding white flash completely wipes his vision as the fire rapidly balloons out. The blast goes off at literal zero range, launching Leonard backward with absolutely chaotic force. He ragdolls straight into the sacred tree. The crash against that ancient wood violently punches every ounce of air right out of his lungs. He aggressively hacks up serious damage, feeling like that shockwave just totally pulverized every single bone in his body. Leonard just stares as the flames start speed running through the cave's greenery. He knows that with the exit totally jammed by the cave-in, this entire room is going to turn into a literal oven in under 5 minutes. With literally zero time to waste, he realizes his only glitch out of this death trap is to smash through his limits and hit the next power tier to force a full physical reboot. Pushing through unimaginable pain, Manuel desperately reaches for the glowing spirit rocks scattered all over the floor. "I'm pushing through," he chokes out. As a weak, flickering light starts wrapping around his wrecked body, he shuts his eyes, feeling the flawless mana from the crystals hardwiring straight into his shredded system. The raw energy of a full 100 spirit stones hyper-focuses right in his chest, kickstarting a totally frantic healing sequence. But honestly, even that massive power drop feels like a weak buff. He practically drags himself across the dirt, running on nothing but pure survival instinct, vacuuming up every single magical leaf and healing plant in rendering distance just to fuel this insane level up. He locks into a meditation stance, completely swallowed by a crazy tornado of energy that's ripping dust and rocks right off the ground. 5 neon cores of totally different colors start aggressively orbiting over his head, perfectly flexing all the different elements of his mana build. Leonard takes a massive breath as his split energies finally start glitching together into one insanely smooth current. A ridiculously blinding flash explodes from his chest. It literally feels like a completely rigged ultra-tier heart just spawned right inside him. His critical damage patches up instantly, and his mana completely skyrockets. Surging with a cracked level of stamina he's never felt before, our boy has finally snapped the level cap of his current tier. But the crazy stat boosting doesn't even pause there. It just keeps snowballing way past normal human limits until a monstrous pure mana flex in the shape of a massive dragon projects right behind him. It is the ultimate sign of hitting a god mode power level. Leonard just chills there, vibing out under the giant tree that's now lighting up the room like a literal sun. His mana bar finally locks in and stabilizes, officially stamping his rank up to Tier 3 of the external strength class. Covered in soot but rocking a death glare that would make anyone instantly back down, Leonard realized he just unlocked an insane power spike. He thought about his upper-rank squadmates, guys who were hard stuck at level 2 for literal years, totally unable to grind even a single step higher. He stared at his hand, now glowing with a neon blue aura. Mana surged through his veins like absolute lightning. He was hyped by how stupidly OP he'd become in a flash, glancing up at the giant tree. He questioned how he even survived that insane point-blank explosion. As the blinding flash faded, he spotted a tiny glowing fruit hanging off a branch. It clicked. That massive burst of spiritual energy literally spawned a force field, saving him and the cave from getting totally nuked by the fire pillar. He grabbed the blue fruit, feeling it vibrating with raw juice fitting perfectly in his grip. Knowing the plant soaked up the surrounding mana just to save his life, he pocketed the seed to plant it later. Time was ticking. Knowing his squad would start asking questions if he ghosted them any longer, Leonard booked it out of the cave. He dashed through the crumbling ruins at warp speed, whipping out his blade before launching himself into the air like a rocket. Boom! He exploded out into the open, kicking up a massive debris cloud as his boots slammed the dirt. He zipped through the forest. He was literally parkouring through the air with cracked superhuman agility. A cocky smirk flashed across his face. He realized he was so ridiculously buffed now that he actually had to lock in just to nerf his own crazy strength. Up ahead, he spotted the training ground gates. He made it just in time. Panting, he tossed a massive beast pelt over his shoulders and frantically fixed his fit. If his captain caught him looking this trashed, he'd have to cook up way too much fake lore to cover his tracks. Clank. The sound of metal whipped his head toward the gates. A squad of rookies rolled up, totally shook that the arena was already unlocked. A loudmouth dude named Ian strutted over, completely hyped, demanding Leonard call him senpai from now on. Leonard just stared back with his signature deadpan look, barely putting up with this guy's cringe behavior. But Leonard wasn't about wasting time. He challenged Ian to a quick one-on-one to test his sword skills. Ian blinked, caught totally off guard, but his massive ego took over. He laughed it off and accepted, flexing that he couldn't deny a newbie's challenge. Flashing a cocky smirk, Ian told him to brace himself for a harsh reality check on what a true Cardina Knight looks like. Ian dashed in, thinking he had the upper hand. But Leonard was a literal blur. Bam! In a split second, Ian was launched into the air, totally clueless about what just wiped him. Man was knocked out cold. Another veteran Gale stepped up to the plate, only to get utterly folded a second later. Leonard was a walking cheat code. The courtyard echoed with the brutal snaps of wooden blades and violent wind pressure from their dashes. Leonard kept perfectly dodging and countering. He was straight up clutching a one versus many against the whole squad, and making it look like a chill walk in the park. Hayden, spectating from the bench, turned absolute ghost white. His brain short-circuited trying to figure out how a literal noob right out of the tutorial possessed this god-tier movement. Sweating bullets, Hayden blatantly cheated. He pumped mana straight into his sword, igniting it in blazing flames for an ultimate strike. Ian woke up and screamed at Hayden for popping mana in a casual sparring match. The whole crew rushed over to Leonard, who was just chilling, staring at his hand. Smoke was literally wafting off his palm from the fiery clash. With creepy calmness, Leonard said, "My bad," claiming his auto-defense just kicked in. Staring at his bleeding hand, he realized that even with a mana block, he still took chip damage. Raw sword skills definitely weren't the only meta in this world. Despite bleeding out, he flashed a tiny grin that deeply creeped out the veteran knights. When they freaked out asking why he wasn't raging, Leonard smoothly replied that he clearly still needed to grind levels from them. Gripping his bloody practice sword, his eyes were totally hyped. He told the squad he was ready for round 2, leaving the upperclassmen absolutely shell-shocked. They couldn't believe this kid wasn't out of stamina after tanking that hit. Ian grinned, swearing they'd pull up to his dorm every night to spar. But the vibe was instantly killed by a massive banging on the heavy wooden doors. Ian dipped and came back. But this time he was hauling a massive combat bag and looking completely deadpan. He told Leonard the nightly grind session was permanently cancelled. Leonard opened the door asking if some crazy drama just dropped. Ian, pacing and totally stressed, said 2 of their bros were completely missing. In action, which felt super sus. He dropped the bomb that a massive turf war had just popped off near the Bone Mountain swamp. The whole zone was absolute pandemonium. Leonard noticed Ian had completely swapped his fit. Bro was strapped up for a literal war zone. Ian spilled the rumors on the street. A wild lycanthrope and a borderline demon-tier troll just threw hands in a brutal turf war right in the swamp's core. The troll got literally roasted alive. And the werewolf was found completely flatlined. Its fur was brutally ripped off. The crime scene leak sounded like a straight-up horror movie massacre. Ian gazed out into the pitch-black forest, whispering that the boss fight must have been sheer trauma. Off in the distance, a massive squad of knights flexing red capes and heavy tank armor started deploying to the hot zone. Ian gave Leonard the rundown. They were rolling out for a giant sweep operation, even though Command was trying to cover it up as night training. He flat out told the kid his level was way too low for this raid. He ordered him to camp at the dorm and chill. Right before dipping, Ian remembered Leonard had snapped half the practice swords during their spar. He dug into his inventory and tossed him 5 solid real blades. He kept it real, saying they weren't exactly legendary teardrops, but they'd definitely keep him from being defenseless for more than 5 minutes. Leonard snagged the loot with genuine gratitude. Ian shot him a thumbs up and a massive grin, telling Leonard not to act like a stranger once he blew up and became a top-tier hero. Then his tone dropped for a final warning. Do not leave base tonight. With literally every knight on the island aggroed at the swamp, any random encounter would be way beyond what basic sword skills could carry. Leonard watched Ian fade into the shadows. He knew this crisis was insane if the entire guild was mobilizing, but he also knew something else. With the guards entirely distracted, this was his ultimate opening. Tossing on a pitch-black fur cloak, Leonard ghosted out toward his own hidden side quest. He knew popping his stealth disguise tonight was a massive gamble, but he pushed forward with ice in his veins. He knew full well that if anyone busted his fake identity right now, it would be an instant game over. Catching any more drama would just spawn massive headaches that he absolutely did not have the bandwidth for. Leonard figured his best play was to go full camo. He wrapped himself in that exact flayed werewolf skin he had looted earlier. The feral stench was literally gag-inducing. But with the heavy fur cape flapping in the wind like a grim reaper, Leonard parkoured through the canopy with cracked agility. He knew that with 90% of the island's security camping the swamp, he practically had admin privileges to roam free. This was a legendary once-in-a-lifetime window to go completely off the radar. Tugging his hood low to shadow his face, he realized something. This was the absolute perfect timing to unlock the restricted zones of the training map, sectors that were usually swarming with guards. His target, the Owl Plains, a biome that looked totally dead and cursed under the creepy, blood-red glow of the night sky. He ghosted forward with 0 footstep audio. The silence was deafening, but his survival instincts were absolutely screaming at him to stay frosty. He suddenly felt eyes on him from the thick fog. A razor-sharp, pure-killing intent literally locked onto him like a sniper laser. Leonard froze in his tracks. He wondered why this invisible mob hadn't pulled the trigger yet. Starting to casually stroll across the rocky ground again, he couldn't tell if the camper was just playing it safe or literally paralyzed by fear. Honestly, he was just bored of waiting. Out of nowhere, a colossal beast dive-bombed from the sky. It crashed into the dirt right in front of him with a massive shockwave kicking up a huge dust cloud. It was a raid boss tier owlbear. A savage tank covered in pitch-black feathers, rocking talons like straight-up obsidian machetes ready to slice anything to ribbons. The beast unleashed an ear-piercing roar. But instead of flinching, Leonard just coldly fixed his hood and stared right into its soul. "You're gonna be my first victim tonight," he whispered, flexing a cocky grin. He figured this absolute unit was the perfect warm-up dummy for the real bosses later. Cut to a completely different beach on the archipelago. The sun flatlined below the horizon just as a gritty voice announced they had officially breached Carabagos Island. Down on the sand, a squad of fully cloaked figures hopped off their tactical dinghies. One of them read off the status report. He mentioned that while they rolled out deep, 2 of their guys got wiped by the brutal ocean currents during the spawn-in. These elite soldiers hailed from the Kyrgyz kingdom, literally radiating lethal max-level veteran aura. The squad leader sighed at the casualties. He explained that some dudes just lacked the skill to surf the wind currents and got straight up swallowed by the waves. Then the main boss of the crew stepped up. He was the 5th shadow of Kyrgyz. Bro had a stare that could literally freeze your blood even hidden under that dark hood. He had a split second of doubt, wondering if the random number generator gods had cursed them at the worst possible time. But he instantly locked back in, letting out a hype war cry to his troops. He roared that their fallen bros wouldn't be just wasted casualties. Their top-secret mission for the motherland had to be clutched, no matter the price. They were the legendary feared Order of the Shadow Knights. A gloved hand crushed a glowing purple orb as the squad leader dropped the ultimate order bag, the Cardenas clan's rookie knights alive. The shadow assassins sprang into motion, whipping out their blades with pure killer intent. They absolutely didn't care if their targets were just kids. They were dead set on stealing the Cardenas bloodline's secrets. The wasteland around them was totally dead, with howling winds kicking up massive dust storms across the burnt dirt. Heavy footsteps smashed into the dry sand. One of the shadow goons was already cursing his awful luck. Thanks to a messy landing, he got completely separated from his squad and was practically shivering with panic. He frantically wondered just how many boss-tier monsters were camping on this island. Barely surviving their attacks, he screamed out for his captain, right as a pack of savage shadows boxed him in the fog. Meanwhile, another masked invader kept rushing, straight toward the island's core, totally baffled as to why the Cardenas family would stash their kids in this literal hellscape. But then he caught on to a weird detail. The deeper he pushed inland, the weaker the mobs became. In this specific zone, absolutely nothing spawned that could actually threaten his life. Swiping through the mental tactical map of their invasion, his boss's cold voice echoed in his head. Once they breached the perimeter, their master plan was locked in. Deep in the forest, the assassin suddenly sensed a massive owlbear. He knew this thing was a heavyweight beast, but he was 100% confident he could easily solo it. He touched down silently in the clearing, blade drawn and ready to strike, but then he just froze. The guy was completely shook. The giant owlbear was already totally wrecked, taken out before he even got close, standing right over the monster's shredded body. The assassin scoped out the woods, paranoia kicking in hard. He realized someone had basically read his playbook. He tugged his mask down, his eyes darting around in full-blown panic mode. The atmosphere was suffocating, and the creepy feeling of being watched was seriously destroying his nerve. Scanning the damage, he noticed the owlbear wasn't the only mob that got totally wiped. He realized whoever did this was a literal combat god. Out of nowhere, a sharp metallic whistle sliced through the air. Relying purely on muscle memory, the assassin deflected the strike and roared out in rage. "Who's hiding?" A blur shifted faster than the human eye could even track. Leonard stepped straight out of the shadows, looking so ridiculously chill that it genuinely terrified the intruder. The assassin immediately backed up, totally mind-blown that it was just a kid. Leonard stared him down with ice-cold eyes, instantly taking control of the room. He casually looked at the intruder, asking who the heck he was. The guy opened his mouth to talk, but got completely crushed by the insane aura just pouring off this boy. With his crimson eyes glowing like an apex predator, Leonard figured out the guy was literally too terrified to even speak. Right then and there, he decided he'd just beat the answers out of him. Gasping for air, the masked assassin realized fear had completely muted him. His eyes flashed with a crazy mix of horror and pure rage as he ripped out his sword, igniting the blade in a blazing golden aura. The insane mana heat warped the air around them as the enemy launched a massive fiery slash. The blast of flames lit up the entire clearing, throwing wild, dancing shadows across the trees. But Leonard, He didn't even flinch. He swatted the heavy strike away like it was a joke, their blades clashing with a deafening ring. "Your blade literally reeks of bloodlust," Leonard sneered, proving the guy was out for blood from the jump. Golden sparks exploded over the dirt as they locked swords. Leonard absolutely dominated the clash, perfectly deflecting every single desperate lunge and totally shutting down the enemy's offense. The invader was completely stunned. His ultimate strike didn't even scratch the kid's clothes. His stomach dropped as it finally clicked he wasn't fighting a boy, he was fighting a literal monster in a child's skin. Leonard dashed across the rocks like a panther, moving so fast he literally left after images hunting for a blind spot. The fight slammed into the canyon walls, where they traded lethal blows in a blindingly fast blur. The assassin finally scored what felt like a clean hit. But nope, Leonard tanked it with a flawless block that echoed through the trees like a gunshot. Totally baffled by this kid's broken defense stats, the invader wondered if the boy was hacking with some banned magical artifact. Leonard just kept turning up the heat, forcing the guy to backpedal nonstop. Every single step was perfectly timed to completely shatter the assassin's ego. Pushed into a corner, the intruder spammed his ultimate move. A massive snake of golden energy blasted from his sword, roaring loud enough to swallow Leonard whole. The woods flashed with blinding light as the assassin mentally kicked himself for blowing his trump card on a literal child. Leonard just analyzed the glowing attack like he was grading a test. He clocked the sword style as cheap and toxic, basically just a sneaky snakebite. With insane swagger, he casually sidestepped the energy blast. "Your technique is trash," he roasted the guy. "I'm literally reading you like an open book." He totally clowned the man, asking if he'd only ever bullied low-level mobs, openly mocking his zero experience against a real boss. Even while getting cooked, the assassin smirked. The fight wasn't over, and he had one last toxic trick up his sleeve. Bam! Glowing purple chains exploded out of the ground, tightly wrapping Leonard in a heavy-duty snare meant to totally paralyze him. The assassin laughed in his face, bragging that by locking down the kid and his sword at the same time, it was a guaranteed win. But his jaw practically hit the floor when Leonard just dropped his sword. The assassin was dumbfounded, wondering why the kid would literally throw the match. Leonard then made it super clear, thinking he was helpless without a weapon. That was just cute. Taking advantage of the guy's shock, Leonard literally flexed and shattered the magic chains, using pure, raw physical stats, and dashed forward. He landed a punch so insanely heavy it instantly knocked the assassin out cold, leaving him face-planted in the dirt with his pride completely crushed. The guy's brain couldn't compute how a kid had this kind of god-tier speed and killer instinct, fading out. The invader wondered if Leonard had already unlocked the broken, terrifying power of the tainted Cardinus bloodline. The huge full moon shined down on the wrecked clearing, putting a spotlight on Leonard's absolute flawless victory. He strolled casually up to the trashed enemy who was now tied up in his very own magic trap. The young rookie showed zero mercy. He leaned in and told the guy he was completely cooked. His mana pool was dry, his body was broken, and his life was literally sitting in Leonard's palm. Seething with rage, the assassin yelled that he was a coward. He accused the boy of being a cursed Cardinus freak who used dirty magic to spit on a real warrior's pride. Leonard just stared at him like he was pathetic and slightly crazy. He couldn't believe this dude had the nerve to talk trash after trying to sneak attack him. He pointed straight at the broken magic trap. "So who's the actual coward here?" he scoffed, brushing off the salty tears. Tied tight to a giant tree, the masked loser screamed out in pure hate. He absolutely loathed the Cardinus family and swore he'd leak the truth about the monstrous powers Leonard was hiding behind his fake rookie vibe. Leonard slowly balled his fist quietly, watching the prisoner physically shake from the sheer, suffocating pressure of his aura. Trying to act tough one last time, the invader actually dared Leonard to finish him off, desperately masking his massive panic with a bruised ego. But Leonard's face was basically carved from ice. With deadpan crimson eyes glowing in the dark, he let the guy know he didn't own his life anymore. He didn't even have the VIP pass to beg for death. The assassin just kept spitting toxic slurs. Calling Leonard a fake glitch born from dirty blood, he swore on his life he'd never leak any intel, choosing death over snitching. Leonard paused at the whole dirty blood comment, wondering if the hater was specifically dropping hints about the Cardinus family secrets. The captive doubled down, screaming that Leonard could never outrun the glitch in his DNA. Flashes of a blood-red moon and the creepy Cardinus mansion triggered in the guy's head as he yelled that they weren't even human, that only monsters could spawn such overpowered freaks generation after generation. A dark, twisted little smirk crept onto Leonard's face under his hood. He whispered that the guy seemed surprisingly tuned into the lore, and decided it was time to dig into exactly how deep that data went. Basking in the moonlight, the real interrogation was just launching. Bathed in the freezing glow of the full moon, Leonard pressed the tied-up assassin hard, demanding the actual truth about the hidden Cardenas genes. Totally blinded by rage, the prisoner spat back that if the original Cardenas founder wasn't a total fake, they wouldn't be hiding out in the middle of nowhere like outcasts. Leonard didn't even flinch, just hitting him with a dead-eyed stare. His crimson eyes glowed like embers as he processed the dude's yapping. With ice in his veins, he asked if the world was so jealous of the Cardenas' insane power that they would actually ditch their knightly honor just to kidnap some kids. Gesturing at the busted magic shackles scattered on the floor, he roasted them, saying if they really wanted all the smoke in a fair fight, they wouldn't need such trash-tier toys. Leonard then spun on his heel to dip, dropping a cold one-liner over his shoulder. Even if they stole his family's secrets, these invaders would still just be honorless garbage from the boondocks. He paused, leaning right into the guy's personal space to assert total dominance, asking if he seriously thought he could face his ancestors with that pathetic excuse for pride. Absolutely triggered, the assassin screamed. How dare you drag the Kyrgyz name? Leonard smirked on the inside. This absolute clown had just leaked his own origin story. The hooded dude froze up, realizing he completely fumbled the bag, while Leonard's sword started humming with a sick, vibrant blue aura. Leonard casually mentioned that when a guy loses his cool, he tends to forget the most basic common sense. The assassin's face twisted into pure, unadulterated panic, seeing the kid flexing this much raw power. Leonard hit him with a brutal reality check. Since his mana circuits were ripped wide open, he was effectively cooked and would die soon. But not before Leonard squeezed every single drop of intel out of him. The Kyrgyz history was basically a massive fall from grace. A tiny forgotten Western kingdom that used to be hyped up as the sacred holy land of knights. That was until the Cardenas' Red Dragon Order literally wiped them off the map in one overwhelmingly brutal clash centuries ago. That massive loss permanently deleted Kyrgyz from the history books. After that, the whole world started hyping up the Cardenas territory as the ultimate stomping ground for warriors. Leonard connected the dots. This raid was just a desperate, pathetic attempt to reclaim their clout by stealing his bloodline's secrets. Secrets he was honestly low-key trying to figure out himself. But right now, things were looking incredibly sketchy. There were actual Transcendence-level threats roaming the island. Sliding his sword back into its scabbard, he figured the smartest play was to snitch to Sir Bradley. He glanced down at his blade, still radiating that fierce blue energy, knowing exactly what kind of final bosses they were dealing with the Kyrgyz Shadow Knight Order. Leonard analyzed the battlefield with ice-cold logic. Most of the kids on this island were just rookies, and this would turn into a total bloodbath if they didn't gear up fast. With zero time for a massive lore dump, he decided to use this assassin as living proof that a master-level menace was on the loose. Delivering a lightning-fast, non-lethal chop, he instantly knocked the guy out cold. He muttered that his current strength was just a cheap knockoff of his past self, but it would get the job done. The scorch marks from his attack were literally branded into a nearby tree, crackling wildly with leftover mana. Leonard looted the guy's magical gear, tossed the unconscious assassin over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, and ghosted into the woods. Cut to a nearby scene, a cozy little camp of white tents tucked under the forest canopy. A squad of exhausted apprentice knights dragged their feet, totally relieved to finally catch a break from their hellish training arc. Ian, one of the rookies, was sweating bullets, practically begging the universe for a chill, drama-free night. The universe totally ignored him the second he spotted something dumped on the dirt. The trainees froze in absolute horror, stumbling upon the Kyrgyz assassin's body sprawled dead center on the path, sporting a wildly pulsing, glowing blue energy wound right on his chest. Pure chaos dropped as they started screaming for Sir Bradley. The veteran knight sprinted over his face, dropping into a serious scowl as he scanned the body. He immediately clocked the wound as a mana blade strike, an ultra-high-tier move that only a legit swordmaster could pull off. Bradley realized the cryptic note left next to the body wasn't just capping. It was a forced confession about the hit put out on the recruits dropped there by Leonard as a massive red flag. The note spilled the tea the Kyrgyz Shadow Knights were rolling up deep, led by a literal Transcendence-level commander. Bradley gritted his teeth, knowing damn well that even if they squatted up with every single rookie on the island, they'd barely survive the incoming nuke. Without wasting a single frame, he ordered Ian to smash the general alarm. The whole island instantly went into a state of maximum emergency. The ear-splitting shriek of the alarm violently ripped through the compound, jolting every knight awake as the threat closed in. Recruits scrambled like mad across the courtyard, the chaotic thunder of heavy boots slamming against wooden floors echoing everywhere. Leonard watched the absolute bedlam from the shadows with chilling calmness, totally satisfied that Bradley swallowed the bait. Down below, Bradley stood before the massive crowd radiating ironclad authority, barking out that this was not a drill. 30 high-level ops had breached Karabagos, and at least one of them was a legit master. He didn't sugarcoat the sheer catastrophic destructive power of a transcendence-level warrior, basically comparing them to the raw force of Commander Fabian, dudes who were literally walking natural disasters where the numbers game meant absolutely nothing. Bradley handed them an ultimatum: fire up a portal, dip out and wait for their families to carry them, or stand their ground and throw hands. Make your choice right now. Cardena's recruits, he roared, knowing a life-or-death raid like this was a once-in-a-lifetime boss fight, assuming they didn't get wiped out. Leonard watched the drama unfold, genuinely intrigued, waiting to see if these kids would actually lock in. Shattering the dead silence, one recruit screamed with absolute fire that they were going to stay and fight. The rest of the squad instantly hyped him up, their voices merging into a roaring chorus, aggressively flexing that they'd leveled up too and weren't about to get folded. Leonard mentally tipped his hat, admitting he completely underestimated them. Deciding to unsheath your sword when the Grim Reaper is breathing down your neck is an insane flex. The entire battalion of rookies raised their weapons in perfect sync, while rows of archers locked into their defensive formations like a massive fortress. Bradley cracked a faint, proud smirk at their sheer guts, but dropped one final heavy reality check. Fighting a transcendence-level boss is basically playing on a completely different server. Bradley immediately pinged Fabian for backup. As the sun sank behind the jagged peaks, Bradley ordered his crew to harden their hearts for the absolute slaughter headed their way. Meanwhile, Leonard was casually speedrunning through a lonely, pitch-black trail, flawlessly exploiting the base's chaos. He hit the brakes in front of a hidden underground tunnel he'd secretly dug near his barracks, a shortcut he was finally ready to pop open. He found it hilarious that since he was technically still a VIP under the protection clause, the knights were probably sweating trying to evacuate him, giving him the ultimate cover to go totally rogue. He whipped out the loot he'd snagged from the dead assassin. Most of the gear was totally bricked, but he spotted an enchanted ring that was still vibrating with heavy power. With a quick pulse of his mana, the ring's emerald gem flared up intensely, but Leonard quickly realized his own freakishly strong heart was firewalling any external mana interference, basically rendering standard magic items completely useless in his hands. The only piece of tech that actually worked was the Shadow Knight Order's internal pinging device. Lucky for him, his past life cheat codes made hacking this thing absolute child's play. He threw on a pendant rocking a glowing green gem, fully planning to jump the invaders from the blind spots or use the tracker as bait if things got messy. He full sprinted through the forest, moving like an absolute blur and kicking up a trail of dust across the jagged rocks. His focus was laser sharp. He had to track down the Swordmaster. There was zero chance he was letting these scrubs treat his turf like their own personal sandbox. Suddenly, his radar caught an SOS ping for backup. Easily deducing that the sender wasn't the big boss, he thought with a vicious smirk. "Stay right there. I'm coming for you." Banking on the massive advantage that they still hadn't realized he was the enemy, the camera cuts to Lion's Canyon, where a suffocating heavy mana pressure is choking the air. A massive tornado of violent purple energy explodes, blasting massive boulders into the sky like pebbles. One of the Kyrgyz assassins gets absolutely yeeted backward by a devastating shockwave, cursing the Cardenas scum. Standing dead ahead of them is a terrifying rank A Manticore, a nightmare fuel behemoth with a twisted human face that has the squad totally boxed in. The monster unleashes an earth-shattering roar, its lethal scorpion tails whipping around like crazy. The assassin leader, sweating bullets and realizing they are severely outstatted, screams for a tactical retreat, choosing the mission over getting wiped by a mob. Mid-sprint, they spot a shadow walking through the bloody mist and instantly mistake him for a homie coming to carry them. One of the grunts squints into the fog, whispering in pure dread, "Don't tell me that guy is." But before he can even finish his sentence, Leonard blitzes them like a flash of blue lightning, abusing the stolen tracker's stealth tech to completely hide his presence. He literally deletes 3 Kyrgyz assassins from existence in the blink of an eye. The final survivor watches in absolute horror, his brain completely blue-screening at how a literal child just mastered their top-secret tech without breaking a sweat. With a gaze colder than liquid nitrogen, Leonard absolutely roasts their guild's reputation, casually dropping the bomb that their captured bro folded and snitched on everything with zero hesitation. Screeching in pure unhinged rage, the assassin throws himself into a desperate crash-out attack. Leonard stays completely unbothered while the dude screams about vengeance, calmly charging up to wipe the last intruder off the map in this sector. With one surgically perfect slash, Leonard shatters the man's defense like glass. A final brutal scream echoes out before the assassin's health bar hits absolute zero, his blood painting the dirt as his eyes go totally hollow. "Did you seriously forget what kind of monster you were running from just a second ago?" Leonard asks coldly. He snaps his icy gaze to the real problem. A rank A manticore steps out of the shadows, and it is absolute nightmare fuel. Picture a massive lion's body totally covered in creepy human and goblin faces, stitched right into its skin. The beast unleashes a roar that literally vibrates the air, locking its bloodshot eyes dead on him. But Leonard doesn't even flinch. He just scans the mutated freak, zeroing in on its snake-like tail and that disgusting armor of faces. The pressure in the room is suffocating, but Leonard just walks up to it with chilling calmness. He's actually fascinated. One bearded human face right in the center seems to be the one calling the shots. Leonard watches the monster huff out this toxic rotting breath while its tails snap around like lethal whips. Then, catching him completely off guard, the creature's main human mouth cracks open. It actually speaks dripping with dark mana. Human. Leonard freezes for a split second. A talking monster, that's basically a myth. But get this, the beast straight up admits it would get totally wrecked if they actually fought. It knows Leonard is way out of its league, but it smirks, warning him that it won't go down without bleeding him first. Its whole game plan, stalling. Just buying time until he gets here, a guy with power completely off the charts. The fifth shadow. We're talking about a swordmaster whose strength breaks the island's power scale. A mental image of this terrifying boss flashes through Leonard's head. Fighting him right now, pure suicide. Even though trusting a mutant lion is a terrible idea, Leonard knows camping out here is a massive risk. The manticore taunts him one last time, daring him to swing first if he isn't afraid to die. Smooth and calculated, Leonard actually slides his blades back into their sheaths. He's giving this freak one single chance to back off before things get messy. Without hesitating, he turns his back and starts walking away. But his senses are dialed to 100. He knows the backstab is coming. Thinking Leonard just dropped his guard, the manticore lunges with a hyped-up roar, screaming that he's an absolute idiot. Please. Leonard saw that betrayal coming from a mile away. In one insanely smooth motion, he spins back around, blasting out condensed bullets of blue mana while dodging like a total glitch. First shot. The head. He whispers just as his energy beam crunches brutally into the beast's skull. The manticore screeches in pure shock. It suddenly clicks. Leonard had scanned all its weak points from second one. He vaults right over the venomous tails. He dodges them mid-air with millimeter precision. Second shot. The lungs, he calls out. Two lethal beams of sapphire mana rip straight through the monster's chest, setting Leonard up for the ultimate kill shot to the heart. Bam! The rank A terror is instantly wiped out in a massive spray of blood. Leonard doesn't even stop to admire his work. He sprints, feeling that crushing god-tier aura of the Swordmaster closing in fast. Time for Phase 2. He chucks a stolen tracker pendant onto the dirt, dropping fake clues just to mess with them. Then he seamlessly melts into the darkest shadows of the canyon. Literally seconds after he ghosts the scene, the fifth shadow crashes into the clearing. The impact violently shakes the canyon walls. Wrapped in a raging tornado of emerald mana, this massive powerhouse steps out of the dust. His flex is so heavy it makes it hard to breathe. His glowing eyes snap straight to the dumped pendant. He drops to one knee to grab it, his jaw clenching with raw rage and grief. He finally realizes he's way too late to save his squad. Scanning the butchered manticore and his fallen guys, a creepy realization hits him. These clean kills. No basic rookie pulled this off. Suddenly, a tiny glitch in the surrounding mana catches his attention and he whips around. His green energy explodes outward as he screams into the dark, demanding to know who dares to watch him. But Leonard is chilling behind some jagged rocks. He knows this boss has an insane radar. Moving like an absolute ghost, he silently backs up out of the master's lethal zone. Who knew digging dirt would literally save my life? Leonard jokes to himself, channeling his mana to tunnel straight through the soft ground. Slipping away through an underground escape route, he vanishes. Back up top, the fifth shadow is left standing alone in the crater. For a second, he actually questions his own elite senses, finding zero trace of the spy he felt just seconds ago. Pissed off, the boss mutters that this mission just got way too complicated. But as he stares down at the broken swords marking his crew's messy graves, he makes a dark vow. He will make whoever did this pay in blood. And with that, he steps hyped up and totally locked in. They knew one thing for sure, even with this weird glitch throwing a wrench in the gears. The absolute craziest part of the Kurga's master plan was already popping off. Meanwhile, up top, Leonard's fist literally busted through the dirt way out in the woods, miles from the canyon. Dude dragged himself out totally wiped but low-key flexing that he just ghosted a literal master's insane gravity trap. He didn't get far before stumbling onto a Cardenas knight who was fading fast, slumped against a mossy boulder and fighting for every single breath. The guy squinted hard at the kid, spotting Leonard's rookie gear. He coughed up some absolutely gut-wrenching news. Just one enemy master had completely wiped out. 43 knights in a flash of absolute slaughter. But it got darker. 8 rookie patrollers got snatched up alive as hostages. Pure heat flared in Leonard's glowing red eyes as the info clicked. He was already mapping out the rescue op in his head, knowing these creeps wanted lab rats, not body bags. He did the math, dragging a huge squad of hostages through a lockdown zone meant they had to be dropping a massive teleportation circle. That's top-tier magic, meaning the bad guys basically secured the bag, hit their main goal, and were sprinting for wide-open ground to dip out. Tracking their footprints, Leonard suddenly tripped over Sir Bradley, who was literally bleeding out in the dirt. "Just chill for a sec," Leonard ordered, totally ignoring the older knight's confused glare. The kid just started pumping raw mana to patch up the guy's crazy injuries. Bradley just stared, totally shook. He couldn't wrap his head around this insane flex of power coming from a literal trainee. Seeing the dude was in zero shape to walk, Leonard effortlessly yanked the full-grown knight onto his shoulders like he was holding a backpack. He knew if he didn't step up right now, the entire Cardenas family's street cred was going straight in the trash. While he lugged Bradley toward a tactical high ground, the rest of the clan's backup squads were swarming the woods like angry hornets. Leonard, now rocking a mask and hood to keep his identity on the down low, glided through the trees like an absolute ghost. He was weaving through friendly fire, flawlessly dodging attacks from his own squad, who totally thought he was a Kyrgyz ops guy. Bradley grinded his teeth. He was low-key stressing, wondering if this masked hero was just a guilty invader switching sides or some entirely different kind of monster. But behind the mask, Leonard was perfectly dialed in, skimming the dirt as he completely smoked the backup troops chasing them. He casually launched himself off a cliff edge, carrying the heavy-duty knight away from the screaming guards and burning forest. He parkoured through a graveyard of broken swords like a literal ninja, bouncing off the weapon hilts to launch himself crazy high into the sky. Finally, he touched down hard on the sandy beach. Hitting his exact drop zone, he planted Bradley on the ground. His eyes locked onto the horizon, hunting for the enemy's escape route, totally ready to square up with whatever was next. Bradley scrambled up and instantly ripped out his sword, lunging straight at Leonard, totally convinced the kid was a bad guy. Leonard didn't even flinch. His big brain play to drag the knights to the shoreline went off without a hitch. The veteran knight threw a wild, rage-fueled swing, absolutely sick and tired of being carried around like an Amazon package. The boy sidestepped it by literally a millimeter. He was just chilling, judging Bradley's sword form like a veteran coach. Bradley suddenly froze up, finally noticing the ocean breeze. He'd been so blinded by his own rage he hadn't even realized they teleported across the map. Leonard just stared at the crashing waves, completely tuning out the ranting knight he just saved, and dropped a chilling warning. Bradley needed to chill and save his HP, because the final boss was about to pull up. Heavy metal footsteps started booming across the beach as a massive dude decked out in head-to-toe armor and a giant cape stepped out of the dark. He was instantly trash-talking the Cardenas crew, calling them mutts. Bradley's face turned to stone. He instantly recognized this guy as the mastermind who just nuked their forest. The fifth shadow ripped out a sword glowing with this toxic green energy, loudly flexing that nobody was making it off this beach breathing. He literally laughed in Bradley's face, bragging that they didn't come to this island to mess around and that they were holding all the cards. Out of nowhere, a massive blinding laser beam smashed down from the sky, flooding the whole beach in this insane white light. Bradley threw his arms up to protect his eyes, absolutely horrified when it clicked. The bad guys just popped a massive group teleport right over their heads. The fifth shadow hit them with this purely evil smirk. He casually dropped that the portal needed 15 minutes to charge up, and until then, he was going to use them for target practice. The armored giant exploded forward at insane speed, his toxic green aura lighting up the sand as he completely trolled their desperate attempts to fight back. Bradley grinded his teeth, his muscles screaming against the insane heavy pressure of the boss's attacks while cold sweat. Perched high on a branch, Leonard locked his eyes on the absolute beatdown happening below. He silently prayed Bradley wouldn't fold just yet. Our boy was on a serious side quest. Mission: bust the captured knights out before the clock ran out. Scanning the base from his sniper view, he caught the massive magic circle throbbing with raw energy right in the middle. Moving like a literal ghost, Leonard slipped into the enemy camp. He totally capitalized on the guards being glued to the main boss fight. Down by the beach, he zeroed his aura, and honestly not a single NPC even blinked in his direction. It was prime time. Deep inside one of the heavily guarded tents, the hostage knights were locked down tight. Their jaws dropped when a dark shadow just materialized out of thin air. Leonard locked onto the glowing cuffs, restraining his squad. Channeling a razor-sharp burst of his signature blue aura, he shredded those heavy chains like they were wet paper. One dude instantly slumped back, exhaling hard as that suffocating magic pressure finally let go of his wrists. Looking totally lost, they whispered, "Wait, did you betray the Kyrgyz clan?" They couldn't wrap their heads around why some random guy was risking it all. Leonard literally cut them right off. He flat out said he didn't have time for a massive lore drop. Talk later, sprint now. Surviving was the only play. The knights just stared at each other, Utterly shook by the insane main character energy pouring off this mysterious kid, Leonard knew they were on borrowed time. The fifth shadow was bound to smell something fishy any second now. With the hostage situation fully handled, Leonard felt a savage wave of hype hit him. Time to stop holding back and actually pop off. Peeling back his mask, he flashed a wicked grin. The only item left on the checklist: humble the enemy boss. Stepping out into the open, they got ambushed by a whole mob of masked assassins thirsty for blood. Leonard just whipped out his dual blades, now blazing with aggressively bright blue fire, and started absolutely wiping the floor with the enemy front line. Just taking out the trash, he casually muttered while his ruthless shockwaves diced the mercs into pieces. Foes dropped like flies, screaming in pure agony. His speed was literally too glitched for them to track. Cut back to the beach. The fifth shadow just delivered a brutal haymaker, sending Bradley spiraling. The boss started trash-talking the absolute life out of him while Bradley hacked up blood. He scoffed, saying the knight was an okay tutorial boss. But now the vibes were just boring. He loudly announced playtime was officially wrapped, flexing that his empire Kyrgyz was about to reclaim the #1 spot on the global leaderboard. Out of nowhere, the dude froze up. An absolutely suffocating aura was zooming right at him. The very guy who had been speedrunning his entire operation. A dark figure dive-bombed from the clouds, wrapped in a blinding crimson aura that ripped straight through the dusk. It was our boy Leonard, who cratered into the dead center of the war zone. The booming shockwave literally forced everyone to stare. The fifth shadow didn't hesitate, immediately firing off a toxic green blast to push him back. But once he got a clear look, the villain was paralyzed. He realized he was staring down the absolute worst nightmare of his life. He instantly tried to play it off, roasting Leonard for being just a literal kid. He vowed to avenge his wiped squad by burying the boy right into the dirt. High above, that magic circle was practically going radioactive, meaning the portal was almost fully charged. The boss stomped forward, crushing the boss. Bodies of his own goons like they were nothing. Seeing his camp turned into a total slaughterhouse, his rage completely boiled over. Swearing to rip this little demon apart piece by piece, he launched himself into a massive aerial strike, crashing down with enough raw emerald power to shatter the whole planet. Leonard smoothly dropped into a defensive block. Doing the quick math, he realized this guy wasn't bluffing. He was a legit master-tier threat, way stronger than any boss he'd fought since his reincarnation. Just die, the villain shrieked. Their blades clashed, sparking a massive explosion. But then, the fifth shadow was left totally speechless. Leonard parried the nuke flawlessly. The villain's brain short-circuited, wondering how a literal child could spam the legendary monoblade technique. With a dead, unblinking stare, Leonard told him to stay mad, instantly revving up his counterattack. The villain pressed his blade down hard, growling like a beast, but Leonard literally didn't budge an inch. "I said die," the boss shrieked again. He unleashed a colossal neon green shockwave that absolutely ignited the entire forest, flooding the clearing with a toxic glow. Leonard flipped backward with insanely smooth footwork, effortlessly dodging those brutal energy arcs while his opponent suffered a complete mental breakdown, screaming at the top of his lungs that this ice-cold calculating kid was an actual monster. Leonard realized this was the ultimate window to turn the tables. He decided to close the gap in a heartbeat, planning to weave and strike in one buttery smooth motion to just end this duel, but the fifth shadow's face warped into a super twisted smirk. He had totally baited Leonard exactly where he wanted him. The assassin pulled out his ultimate cheat code, a deadly toxin engineered to literally instantly flatline an enemy's mana flow. He gloated that in a matter of seconds, Leonard's heart would just stop, leaving him as a completely paralyzed puppet at his mercy. Leonard literally did not care and dove straight in. "Appreciate the lore drop," he clapped back with max sarcasm. The brutal metallic screech of their weapons echoed out. But Leonard didn't lose a single ounce of speed. His crazy, unique energy literally sanitized the air, bouncing the toxic, dark vibes of his opponent's aura right off him. The fifth shadow was absolutely shook. His god-tier move was hardcore flopping against a literal teenager. Leonard knew that his own heart had a built-in biological firewall, letting him shrug off toxins that would flat-out drop any other fighter. "I already told you my methods are none of your business, Leonard." Dropped the mic as crazy sparks flew from their grinding blades. Pure panic totally hijacked the villain. Since his big brain plays and his poison both heavily backfired, with absolutely bloodshot eyes, the fifth shadow got ready to burn through every single drop of his remaining power, unleashing a literal hurricane of toxic green mana, giant snakes that turned the battlefield into an absolute death trap. Leonard glided through the wild chaos with flawless superhuman swagger, even while his enemy screamed out in pure unfiltered rage. The kid clocked that this dude had officially lost the plot. spamming desperate attacks with zero brain cells involved. Straight up laughing at the guy's sloppy attempts to lock him down. Eyes totally locked in, he charged up a massive vortex of sapphire energy, ready to just wipe the floor with him. The hit was absolutely devastating. A blinding shockwave blasted the fifth shadow, sending him flying back like a ragdoll, hacking and coughing. The assassin glared at Leonard with raw, sickening hatred, violently refusing to take the L. Blood was literally pouring down his face. The brutal price of pushing his dark magic way past its absolute hard limit. Even if it literally kills me, I'm taking you to hell with me, the villain screamed. Spawning one last massive crazy projection of raw magic, the toxic green aura started choking the air, flooding the zone with dozens of wild, ultra-dangerous energy spikes. Leonard stayed iced out and watched, knowing this guy was gambling his actual soul on a total suicide play. The young warrior blasted forward, his insane burst speed ripping a trench right into the dirt. He instantly scanned the enemy's move, realizing it was a giant illusion acting as a smokescreen for the real kill shot. Stay chill, swing faster. He hyped himself up as he sliced right through the magical jungle. He started picking apart those mana snakes with insane surgical precision, funneling all his energy straight into his blade's razor edge. With one lightning-fast upward slash, he straight up deleted a sneaky attack coming right at his blind spot. The runway to his target was finally wide open. Got him, he thought, getting a massive, hyped-up rush of adrenaline. Leonard launched himself up, sword raised high to secure the final kill. But wait, a toxic green flash exploded right under his feet. It was a perfectly hidden trap, completely shook. Leonard took a brutal blast of energy straight to the chest, leaving him totally paralyzed and hanging totally helpless in midair. The fifth shadow instantly cashed in on the glitch, snatching out and choking the kid right by the throat. He dangled Leonard high in the air, laughing his head off at such an absolute rookie choke. Your luck is officially dead, kid. See you in hell, the villain sneered, winding up for the instant execution. But at that exact split second, a chilling voice dropped with absolute boss energy. Yeah, that's definitely not happening. In a flash, the assassin's arm got cleanly sliced off, sent flying like a frisbee from an invisible, ridiculously fast strike that literally tore through space itself. Fabian, the commander of the Cardenas, stepped onto the scene with freezing cold swagger, his crimson cloak catching the wind as his ice-cold stare completely locked down the zone. The fifth shadow just stared at his bleeding stump in total disbelief, too deeply stunned to even scream at the commander's insane glitch-like speed. Who the hell are you? Where did you even come from? The villain shrieked, totally breaking down. Fabian gave the guy zero breathing room, launching a vicious upward slash that tore through the air. That's for the squad you wiped out before I got here, he growled, his voice absolute ice. Hacking up a lung from the insane battle damage, Leonard just flashed his enemy a totally savage grin. You were thirsting for my blood that bad, huh? The kid taunted, not holding back at all. Leonard roasted the stumbling assassin, pointing out that his crazy tunnel vision for the kill is exactly what made him completely miss Fabian. Sneaking up. The commander's intense glare instantly melted into Major Dad energy when he checked on the kid. My bad for showing up late, Leonard, he said with pure guilt. Fabian was literally in awe looking at his nephew's insane glow-up. You've leveled up way faster than I ever thought possible, he grinned proudly. The Cardenas Knight dragged himself over to the squad, basically crying tears of joy just to be breathing. Fabian gave full credit where it was due, pointing out that Leonard absolutely refusing to tap out was the only reason they actually managed to pull Bradley out alive too. Running on absolute 0 HP, Leonard just begged for a hot second to catch his breath. He was so ready to just crash on the spot. Let's deal with the rest of this drama after I catch some Z's. Leonard mumbled weakly. Fabian gave him a super warm, understanding nod. You could literally see the total burnout written all over the young warrior's face. For sure. Take all the time you need, he promised gently. But the second he turned his head, the commander's eyes went dead cold, locking right back onto the assassin who was somehow still desperately clinging to life. While you nap, Fabian muttered darkly, I'm gonna go finish taking out the trash. He geared up to execute the fifth shadow, who was frantically scrambling to scrape together his last drops of mana. We are not done here, the villain choked out totally in denial as he literally hovered in midair. Wrapped in this wildly toxic green aura, the guy was showing freakish levels of persistence, but Fabian didn't flinch for a single millisecond. The commander flared up this insanely heavy red spiritual pressure. This is where your story ends, Fabian declared like an absolute boss. A brutal blast of energy smashed right into the fifth shadow. The massive shockwave literally shoved Leonard backward, but suddenly Fabian's jaw dropped in horror. The assassin completely dropped his guard just to set up one last wildly toxic trap, barking out a psycho laugh with his eyes popping out of his skull. The fifth shadow triggered a massive glowing teleportation circle. If I'm going down, I'm dragging you to hell with me, he screamed. Leonard just watched in pure panic as the space around them started heavily glitching out, tearing apart from the forbidden magic. A gigantic pillar of blinding light exploded upward, completely swallowing both Leonard and the assassin. The forced warp spell locked in. They vanished from the clearing in a flash, leaving behind absolutely nothing but a wispy trail of blue mana, sparkling in the air as the only proof of the fight. Fabian stared at the empty space, his frustration completely boiling over. The kid was gone. Checking out the scorch marks fried into the dirt, he figured out the landing zone was completely random since the spell was so totally unhinged. The commander kicked himself for slipping up, assuming he was the main target instead of young Leonard. Bradley was super confused, wondering out loud why they'd go so hard after a rookie who just started his journey. Clearly the bad guys saw him as a massive game-ending threat ready to pull out all the stops just to delete him from the map. They remembered how Leonard basically boxed a god-tier assassin while only being a total noob. Bradley admitted he'd never seen anyone level up that insanely fast. A literal legend was being written in Cardenas history right in front of them. Fabian instantly called in backup from the main estate to launch a massive manhunt. They needed to secure that kid no matter what it took. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Leonard was literally just floating on a chunk of debris in the middle of the endless ocean, clinging to 1 HP. He felt the salty waves crashing over his face as his battery finally hit absolute zero. Luckily, from the deck of a random passing ship, somebody spotted his body just bobbing in the surf. Leonard finally blinked awake, rocking a fresh bandage on his cheek. He was completely out of it. Feeling the floor rocking back and forth and breathing in that heavy ocean air, it was super obvious he was on a boat. A redhead girl flashed him, a smile, looking massively relieved that her rescue mission actually worked. She didn't beat around the bush. She had a ton of questions considering they literally snatched him right out of the Grim Reaper's hands. She introduced herself as Francis the boss running the ship Aquamarine and asked for his name. The kid sat up and just casually dropped that he was Leonard straight out of the Arcadia Empire. They shook on it to make the intro official, but Francis looked completely shook. Arcadia was an insanely far trip from where they were sitting. Leonard shrugged it off, explaining some wild magical glitch was to blame. He got blurry flashbacks of the assassin's face and that blinding flashbang of a spell right before he totally blacked out. That's when Marion, who'd been heavily side-eyeing this whole interaction from the back, finally stepped up to them. She couldn't help but stare. Leonard was absolutely ripped for his age. A total dead giveaway of a Cardenas warrior. Leonard just shrugged it off. "Is my last name going to be an issue around here?" he asked. Marion immediately leaned in, warning Francis that getting tangled up with a Cardenas was playing with fire. But before they could finish, a sailor literally kicked the cabin door wide open. The guy was gasping for air, totally freaking out. He begged Francis to get down to the docks right this second. Turns out, Luciano Peterson and his goons were tearing the port apart. Marion's blood boiled of all the days to pull this garbage they had to pick today. Francis quickly apologized to Leonard. She told him his gear was prepped, and he was completely free to bail whenever he felt up to it. Leonard was left alone in the quiet cabin, just staring at his weapons laid out on the table. But right before the captain vanished out the door, he froze her in her tracks with one question. "Why did you save me?" Francis stopped dead in her tracks. She glanced back with a soft smile, and simply said she never leaves anyone behind when they need a hand. Leonard just stared, letting those words sink in. In his head he was thinking, honestly, you're the one who looks like you need saving right now. Cut to the Aquamarine dock, absolute chaos was popping off. Francis and Marion marched down there, radiating pure boss energy, ready to shut these punks down. Luciano Peterson rolled up with his whole squad. He greeted Francis with this punchable, arrogant smirk plastered on his face. Well, look who it is," he sneered, looking down his nose at her. Marion was already gripping her sword hilt ready to snap. But Luciano just kept running his mouth. He had the nerve to tell Francis she should smile more since it had been so long. Yeah, zero chance this guy came in peace. He had that greedy look of someone about to drop an insane ultimatum. Exactly that. Luciano snapped at Marion to zip it, throwing out a nasty comment that dogs should stay quiet when the masters are talking. The sheer disrespect was wild. Marion looked ready to literally rip his head off. Luciano just shoved past her, acting like this was big boss business only. He got right in Francis's face and demanded she drop the stubborn act and hand over the Aquamarine, right now. In his twisted mind, a legendary ship like that was totally wasted on a washed-up noble like her, and called it an absolute tragedy. Luciano didn't hold back, just kept hurling these toxic insults. He cruelly dragged her dead father into it, mocking her for acting like she still owned the world, just because of some birthright. He claimed the ship was basically a royal artifact, and said it was literally rotting away under her command. Francis didn't flinch. She locked eyes with him, eyes cold as ice. Keeping her voice deadly calm, she told him to get the hell out. She swore he would never lay a single finger on her ship. Luciano's vibe flipped in a second. The fake nice guy mask slipped, exposing this raw, ugly threat underneath. He growled that he was offering a massive payout, and she'd better take the deal while he was still feeling generous. Then the atmosphere literally shattered. Before Luciano could even finish his threat, Leonard spawned out of absolutely nowhere. A massive spray of crimson blood painted the wooden docks. With chilling, dead-eyed calmness, Leonard glanced over at Francis and asked, like he was asking what to get for lunch, if she'd mind him butchering this guy right now, to clear out the biggest annoyance. Francis and Marion were completely paralyzed. Their brains were totally short-circuiting trying to process the absolute blur that just went down. Luciano was crumpled on the floor, screeching in pure agony. He was clutching the gushing stump of his severed arm, screaming curses. He called Leonard a psycho, completely losing his mind from the pain and humiliation. Spitting blood, he shrieked at Francis, blaming her for the bloodbath before screaming a panicked order to his goons. Kill him, wipe them all out. The gang rushed forward like a desperate, mindless wave. But Leonard, he moved like a flash of blue lightning. He sliced through the air with this insane, logic-defying smoothness. With a few effortless, almost lazy spins, he stripped the thugs of their weapons before they even realized he moved. He didn't even bother using his blade for half of them. He unleashed a brutal, bone-shattering kick that launched one guy straight into the pavement, cracking the stone. The two girls were standing there like absolute statues, just watching Leonard completely dismantle a whole mob in under 10 seconds. Marion glanced down at her sword, realizing she hadn't even unsheathed it. The whole fight was over before it even started. She was literally trembling, wondering what kind of absolute demon they had fished out of the ocean. Meanwhile, Francis finally felt the heavy, terrifying reality of the Cardenas name. Leonard wrapped up the slaughter with one last, devastating strike, leaving the pier completely covered in groaning bodies. He casually walked back to the girls, the sound of the waves returning to the dead, silent dock. He pointed at a sobbing Luciano and calmly asked what they wanted to do with him. Noticing their jaw-dropped expressions, Leonard tilted his head, genuinely confused. Wondering if he messed up, he asks what's wrong. Francis just shakes her head, finally snapping out of it to drop a massive bombshell. Luciano isn't your average street punk. He is the secret love child of literally the most terrifying boss in all of Atlantis. Leonard goes dead silent, instantly realizing he just cannonballed straight into a toxic political nightmare. Francis breaks down the Maritime Union, a massive territory ruled by a hyper-ruthless council, and Luciano's dad Pablo, the Orlando Peterson, is literally one of the top 5 kingpins choking the life out of these seas. Leonard processes this with his signature icy logic. This rich kid is way more toxic than he originally looked, locking eyes with Francis. He's already playing 4D chess in this bizarre new world. Francis, I'll be your bodyguard for a bit. Leonard declares it with zero room for debate. He knows that sticking right by her side, it lets him crush her enemies, keep her totally safe, and the biggest flex of all, farm the exact intel he needs to finally fast-track his way back home. But real talk, how is the Maritime Union gonna react when they find out a straight-up monster from the Cardenas clan just absolutely wrecked the son of their most brutal boss? Hearing Francis lay it all out, Leonard flashes a surprised look and doubles down. I'm officially your bodyguard. Francis beams a totally warm smile, reaching out her hand. Absolutely, we'd love to have you. They lock hands in a solid shake as she adds, I'm super pumped to work with you. Giving a chill little nod, Leonard replies, the pleasure's all mine. Francis. A second later, his gaze snaps back to the absolute mess of a dude he just folded, staring at his knocked-out body. Leonard casually drops, oh, by the way, what's the play with this guy? We probably need to stash him somewhere. Francis briefly glances at the unconscious creep, zero care in the world. As long as we don't literally end him, it's whatever. Honestly, even his own dad washed his hands of him ages ago, so he'll totally ignore this mess as long as his son keeps a shred of dignity. Well, that's a massive relief, Leonard shoots back. Not wasting another second, Francis steps forward looking incredibly elegant, saying, alright, just stick with me and don't stress. I've got somewhere important to be, and I'm totally banking on you to watch my back. Got it, Leonard replies, pausing for just a beat. So, should I call you Captain? Hearing that, Francis bursts into a soft, airy giggle. If you're cool with it, Leonard, you can literally just call me Fran. Say less, Leonard replies. Let's run that back then. Fran. The absolute second he drops her nickname, Francis whips around looking insanely thrilled. Wait, can you say that one more time? She practically begs. Leonard blinks, super confused, but says her name again anyway. Right on cue, the other bodyguard shadowing Francis mutters, my lady. Next thing they know, a humongous tidal wave erupts around them. It swallows the whole squad in a glowing crystal blue water shield. Leonard is absolutely mind-blown watching the water swirl through the streets like literal living magic. Okay, that's insane, he admits. I've never seen anything remotely like this back in Arcadia. Francis just struts ahead totally unfazed. This is a massive merchant hub. They care about aesthetics over literally everything else. It's all just one giant flex, honestly. But that's exactly why every adventurer swarms this place. Pushing deeper into the city, a humongous jaw-dropping building suddenly blocks their path. Towering over the whole block, its crazy aesthetic architecture and liquid water designs make it look straight out of a royal palace, not some boring office. Francis points at the giant structure, and this is Bermuda, the main management hub. For all of Atlantis's adventuring parties, Leonard just tilts his head back dead silent, soaking in the sheer size of it. Right then, Francis points to a specific wing inside, while a super robotic voice echoes through the air, hitting them with an official system alert. B07 Aquamarine Party. Leader Francis Lel von Oceanus. Your VIP credentials are fully verified, routing you straight to Zephyrus Hall. Now, Zephyrus Hall isn't just any room, it's a high-end VIP lounge strictly locked. Exclusively for B-rank adventuring squads only. Let's roll. Francis smirks, shooting a look at Protonus before leading the whole crew inside. The literal second Leonard steps through those doors. His eyes blow wide open, totally overwhelmed by the insane luxury. The hall is ridiculously massive, decked out with crazy polished crystal walls and floating water decorations. Crystal chandeliers threw pools of icy blue light across the marble floors. Straight up, every inch of this joint screamed insane money and high status. This place is seriously decked out, Leonard thought, his eyes scanning the opulent details. Is B-rank actually this massive of a flex? If so, Aquamarine wasn't just some random guild, it was a straight-up empire. He kept scoping out the massive hall, taking it all in. A guild receptionist glided over, flashing a perfectly polished customer service smile. Hey there, I'm Clara. I manage Zephyrus Hall, and I'll be walking you through your squad's registration right now. Her eyes flicked down to her clipboard. So with Leonard hopping on board, your crew officially hits 3 members. Leonard's mind short-circuited a bit at that number. 3. He was still trying to wrap his head around the massive scale of the syndicate he just joined. Clara swiveled his way, keeping her professional glow. Master Leonard, what's your main combat style? I gotta log your team's total damage output for the records. But before Leonard could even drop a single word, some random dude lounging nearby let out a totally obnoxious snort. Yo, Clara, why are you even wasting your breath? The kid is obviously just some pretty little toy for the lady over there. The vibe in the room instantly nosedived into pure ice. Leonard didn't even flinch. He just casually glanced at Francis. Fran, want me to take out the trash? Francis didn't miss a beat, her face completely stone cold. Nah, leave it. Clowns act up like this all the time. That absolute brush-off completely triggered the guy. He violently kicked his chair back and shoved his blade straight at them. He's just some warm body to fill out a pathetic 2-person squad, right? Boom! The next millisecond jaws dropped. Leonard vanished. He blitzed forward so insanely fast that the human eye couldn't even track him, teleporting right into the guy's personal space. He disarmed the dude like stealing candy from a baby, pressing the cold steel right up against his jugular before the bully could even twitch. Dead silence dropped over the entire guild hall. Leonard locked eyes with the now sweating trash talker and whispered deadpan. You seen enough of my skills yet? Clara panicked, immediately throwing her hands up in surrender. Yes, totally understood. Desperate to defuse the absolute bloodbath about to happen, she scrambled to change the subject. So, where do you hail from anyway? That threw Leonard off. He completely froze. My hometown. His brain went into overdrive. Judging by how Marion completely freaked out earlier, dropping the Arcadia name bomb was a massive red flag. But pleading the fifth would look super sketchy right now. After doing a quick mental scan, Leonard finally opened his mouth. The Kingdom of Kyrgyz. But the second those words left his lips, he cringed internally. Big yikes. That's literally the only other nation I could remember under pressure. Clara aggressively scribbled the name onto her sheet, throwing her customer service smile back on. Boom, you are officially logged into the Aquamarine database. Leonard quietly flipped through the fresh paperwork, scanning every single detail of his brand new adventurer profile. But 10 feet away, Frances was practically vibrating out of her boots. Her eyes were literally glowing with hype as she squealed in her head. Let's go. My squad finally snagged a third player. Her poker face was so non-existent that Leonard couldn't help but stare. Fran, he asked, raising an eyebrow. The absolute second, his voice hit her ears. Frances totally short-circuited. Oh crap. My badass captain persona. She was having a full-blown internal meltdown, scrambling for survival. She instantly puffed out her chest, slapped on an icy stare, and tried to look tough. Ahem. Solid work, she grunted, forcing her voice down an octave. Welcome to the Aquamarine crew, Leonard. She immediately spun on her heels, desperately hiding her blushing cheeks. Anyway, we are done here. You're off the clock. Go touch some grass, check out the city. You've been eyeing the architecture anyway. She hesitated for a split second, dropping the tough girl act for a brief genuine moment. Seriously though, pumped to have you with us. That earned a soft, genuine smirk from Leonard. If that's the case, can I cash in a favor real quick? Francis blinked, totally caught off guard by whatever he just dropped. But the camera practically cuts away, totally hiding the juice, leaving the audience completely in the dark about his secret request. Cut to way later in the afternoon, Leonard is chilling outside a random suburban house. A warm female voice floated through the doorway. You've got to be Leonard. Fran hyped you up so much. Get in here. Leonard gently pushed the door open, stepping over the threshold with maximum manners. Appreciate it. Pardon the intrusion. The second he stepped inside, the woman chilling in the chair gave him a full-on ocular pat-down, looking him up and down before dropping this. You're seriously giving zero mage energy right now, but you still want to dabble in magic. Leonard blinked, totally caught off guard by the room's vibe. Random stuff just hovered in midair like gravity, completely forgot how to do its job. Spellbooks, cups, ancient scrolls, and mystical relics literally swam through the air. And the craziest part? She was puppeteering. All of it, without even breaking a sweat. Just one look, and it was painfully obvious her mana control was operating on a totally different stratosphere. She kicked back in her chair, totally unbothered, and demanded, "All right, spill." Leonard laid out his entire wild situation. She soaked up the whole story in dead silence, before finally giving a slow nod. Gotcha. So that's the mess we're dealing with. Yeah, Leonard replied, completely deadpan. Ever since I got absolutely swallowed whole by that spatial magic, I knew I needed a counterstrat. Right now, my magic IQ is literally sitting at 0. Her eyes locked onto him like a hawk, scanning his face to see if he was capping or actually being real. The room went pin-drop silent before she finally cracked. Makes sense, she coolly replied. So you're not just trying to class change into a magic swordsman. Cue the boss title card drop. This was Esther, an elite 4th circle mage, straight out of the Atlantis magic tower. Esther stared him down, keeping her voice super steady. If you want to beat magic, you gotta let your body memorize its flavor first. I know a total cheat code that even a meathead swordsman can grasp. She casually flicked her wrist, hovering a tiny, neon-glowing spirit stone right above her palm, breaking down the game plan. Everyone grinds their mana by sucking up spirit stones, right? We're just tweaking that mechanic. We're gonna forcefully hack your body's magic tolerance using a spirit stone completely hardwired with a magic circuit. Leonard's eyebrows instantly knitted together. Hold up. It's not like I actually want to cast spells. He shot back, low-key suspicious. Chill. Esther clapped back without skipping a beat. Unless your body has some freakishly rare glitch, this is literally the fastest, safest speedrun strategy we've got. She let out a massive dramatic sigh, shifting gears completely. Plus, babysitting you is officially in my job description now. Since I'm repping Aquamarine, I'm contractually obligated to level up my rookies. Because if I don't, that psycho girl is going to kick down my door and scream my ears off again. Just the mental picture of a raging Francis was more than enough to make even the ice-cold Esther physically cringe. Time to pull the trigger. At first, not bad. Just a weird, cozy heat radiating through his chest. But then the system crashed. Fast. His lungs felt like they were breathing through a straw. His muscles locked up like concrete, and thick, jagged veins literally popped out across his forearms as the magic circuit went completely feral inside his bloodstream. Esther's radar instantly went off. This was a catastrophic misfire. Her chill, unbothered mask shattered. Wait. What she muttered, totally thrown off. A basic NPC should be able to tank this circuit with 0 issues. Her eyes went wide as a terrifying theory hit her. No way. Does his body actually have boom? Before she could even finish, Leonard ripped out a blood-curdling roar. An absolute tsunami of raw energy detonated from his core. We're talking way beyond anything Esther had calculated. Violent shockwaves of pure mana nuked the entire room, violently rattling the foundation. Spellbooks got yeeted off shelves, heavy mahogany desks shuddered, and all those chill, floating objects. They turned into a literal tornado of chaos as his unstable energy just kept puking outward. The pure, suffocating pressure actually warped the air itself, like a glitch in the Matrix radiating off him. Esther was completely paralyzed, staring at the sheer, absolute madness. It's not supposed to hit this hard, she whispered, her eyes frantically tracking the rabid mana swirling around him. After an agonizingly long minute, the reactor finally stopped melting down. The violent energy began to fizzle out. The chaotic mana hurricane evaporated into thin air, leaving behind dead, deafening silence. The rogue objects just thudded back onto the floor, and that crushing heavy gravity feeling completely vanished. Only when the red alert was fully cleared did Esther cautiously step up, asking in a low, tight voice, "Leonard, you still alive?" Still gasping for air, like he just ran a marathon. Leonard slowly dragged his head up and wheezed. Yeah, he just stood there completely zoned out for a second. A completely alien rush of raw mana surged through his veins. He scanned his internal mana circuits, and a mind-blowing realization hit him out of nowhere. Wait, is the Cardina bloodline actually cracked at magic too, and not just swordsmanship times, he thought. He had literally rewritten the core formula like the original spell was complete trash. Glancing at Esther, Leonard kept his cool and dropped a bomb. Way better than just okay. I actually managed to totally remix one of the spells hardwired into the circle. The stone. It was Magic Missile. Esther's jaw practically hit the floor when she heard that. Magic Missile is literally a bottom-tier rookie spell, but is flipping the code like that even possible? She gasped, totally utterly baffled. Right then, thick, heavy mana started violently swirling around Leonard's body. Glowing shards of pure energy materialized, levitating around him as the room's pressure suddenly spiked to insane levels. Leonard just stared at the glowing spell matrix forming over his palm. The original structure was super clunky and wasted way too much mana, he explained. So I reconfigured it into razor-sharp daggers. Esther just stared at the floating blades, absolutely flabbergasted. Hold up. Are you seriously telling me you mutated the spell's absolute base form? Her voice was totally shaking. I can't even pull off something that crazy yet, and you just casually spawned 5 of them at once. Leonard, meanwhile, didn't even break a sweat, acting completely unfazed despite pulling off a literal miracle for a rookie. He just turned to her and casually asked, "Hey Esther, if you're cool with it, mind letting me take a look at your magic circuits too? I guess that's fine," she replied, super cautious. "But why?" Without missing a single beat, Leonard fired back. "Because I can spot exactly where you need an upgrade." Cut straight to the legendary Atlantis Magic Tower. Deep inside this massive fortress stuffed with ancient, runic circles and endless floating spellbooks, another major player was waiting for them. The absolute second Leonard and Esther stepped foot inside, the guy groaned, sounding annoyed as hell. "Please spare me the headache today. I'm already slammed with work as the chief elder here." The dude standing in front of them was a literal VIP, the head honcho of the Atlantis Magic Tower. The absolute legend himself, the 7th-tier mage Jack Russell. Seeing him, Esther immediately spoke up. "Obviously I know that. As your one and only star pupil, I totally get how swamped you are." "Master." Leonard stepped up, smoothly bowing his head. "An honor to meet you. I'm Leonard from Aquamarine." Jack Russell barely gave him a side-eye. Jack Russell. Random outsiders almost never get clearance to be in here. So spit it out. "What's the emergency?" Esther locked eyes with her master, going dead serious. "Master." I officially broke through to the 5th stage. The instant those words dropped, Jack Russell's bored expression instantly shattered. "You've literally been hard stuck at a massive bottleneck for years," he muttered, totally shell-shocked. "How the hell did you pull this off?" Flexing her new aura, Esther sparked her mana and said, "Just watch." A violently blazing fireball instantly ignited, hovering right over her palm. But this wasn't your basic trash-tier fire spell. The flames violently warped, compressing tighter and tighter under her absolute control. As the inferno spun like a literal hurricane, the massive fireball condensed down into a razor-thin, rapidly rotating disc, giving off an absolutely terrifying wave of heat and pressure. "Check this out," Esther bragged. "I can completely shapeshift my spells now by crushing the flames and spinning them into a buzzsaw. I managed to absolutely max out my attack damage." Then she glanced back at Leonard, coming clean. "Leonard actually debugged my circuits and coached me." But the second Leonard noticed the wildly glitching mana leaking from her spell, his chill vibe vanished. "Esther, you really shouldn't be sparking that indoors," he warned, dead serious. Right then, the panic hit her as she realized she was losing her grip. "Oh crap, I still can't steer this thing," she screamed out. The hyper-spinning fire disc instantly broke apart, launching itself forward like a runaway rocket. It went totally rogue, violently shredding through the air inside the room, with completely terrifying momentum, acting like it was ready to obliterate every single thing in its way. Jack Russell didn't even flinch. He just watched the chaos unfold, frozen in place. To think this kid already unlocked spell transformation, a skill usually hard-locked for 6th-tier elites times. He muttered, a heavy spark of pure hype lighting up his eyes. Interesting. Get this, the next second Jack just casually flicks his wrist. With one effortless motion, that totally out-of-control spell completely wiped out, like it literally never even existed. The raging inferno straight up vanishes, leaving zero trace of heat behind. Jack locks eyes with Leonard, his voice dropping low. "Shattering the limits of magic, no matter how much raw talent or willpower you pack, is literally impossible. Unless you wake up and realize the truth yourself. His whole vibe shifts, getting dead serious. I owe you a debt I couldn't pay back in 10 lifetimes. Esther definitely brought you here knowing exactly that. Catching those words. Esther instantly looks away, completely flustered and blushing hard from the flex. Meanwhile, Jack closes the distance, staring right into Leonard's soul. The chief elder drops the bomb. Do you want to be my disciple? Boom. Pin drop silence. I mean, there is literally no bigger flex for a mage than this. Jack waits calmly, but Leonard Bro shoots it down instantly with zero hesitation. My bad, but I'm strictly locked into the path of the sword. Jack just stares at him for a beat, letting out this soft sigh. An instant rejection, huh? Total bummer. But honestly, he doesn't stay salty for long. Shrugging it off, he gives a respectful nod. Alright then. As a massive thank you, I'm giving you the exact same clearance level as Esther. Leonard's eyes narrow, processing the weight of that. I'm granting you VIP, unrestricted access to the magic tower, plus unlimited dibs on every piece of knowledge and magical gear we've got. But even dropping all those OP perks, he knows it doesn't top his personal mentorship. Scanning Leonard closely, Jack throws in one last massive cherry on top. And about your aquamarine squad, I swear an ironclad alliance with them too. I appreciate that, Leonard responds, keeping it super professional. Trust me, I'll be cashing in on that. Even as he says it, Leonard's gears are already grinding, calculating the massive win. Being besties with the magic tower, that's going to skyrocket Aquamarine street cred. Wrapping up the heavy talk, Leonard finally dips out of the tower and heads straight back to Zephyrus Hall over in Bermuda. Francis is already chilling there waiting for him. But the absolute second he drops where he just came from, her jaw practically hits the floor. Wait, you met with the chief elder of the magic tower? She screams, losing her mind. Leonard just nods like it's no big deal. Yeah, he locked in a solid alliance with Aquamarine. The absolute millisecond those words leave his mouth, Francis rushes him, practically buzzing with pure hype. She is literally glowing. Leonard, she squeals, totally geeking out. Are you kidding me right now? Do you know the insane jackpot you just pulled? The magic tower isn't just big. Francis rants, barely breathing. They're absolute titans. They go toe-to-toe with Bermuda and the freaking Union Council. The fact that we're actually linking up with them, I'm literally shook. Leonard just lets her ride the high. For a second, before his eyes dart down to the stack of papers she's aggressively clutching. Fran, focus up. What's with the hit list? He asks. Francis snaps right back into boss mode. This is my dream team wish list for the squad. If we don't start drafting fresh talent, we're going to be hard stuck doing low-level garbage forever. Real talk, without our current clout, hitting B rank would have been a total pipe dream. So basically, the more OP the rookies, the better, right? Leonard clarifies. Duh, obviously, Francis fires back. But then she catches some wild drama unfolding across the hall, and points straight at it. Actually, that girl over there, she's definitely giving main character energy. Leonard turns to look, and bro, it's total chaos. Some dude is helplessly dangling upside down from the rafters. He's literally pinned to the wood by a bunch of perfectly shot arrows, totally uninjured, but absolutely humiliated. Swinging like a human piñata, the guy starts screaming his lungs out. Are you out of your mind? Cut me down right now, you filthy half-breed elf. You're dead meat, one-eyed Ninian. But before he can even finish throwing a tantrum, thwack. Another arrow blitzes past his head, nailing the target flawlessly and yanking his trap even tighter. The archer, she just casually strolls up, hitting him with an absolutely icy death glare. You're lucky we're in public, you absolute trash. Right on cue, a bunch of random adventurers swarm in, desperately trying to de-escalate the madness. Whoa, chill out. Aren't you taking this a little too far, Ninian? One of them stammers out, sweating bullets. Another dude folded his arms, smirking. If the guild slaps you with a fine for this, can you even cover it with your pathetic cut? Then a second guy pushed to the front, dropping all the jokes. Drop the ego and just join Santa Maria already. Paying off your sister's ransom isn't exactly pocket change, is it? The tension in the air spiked instantly, turning totally suffocating. Cutting right through that heavy silence, Leonard strolled into the dead center of the crowd. You guys are doing way too much, he stated coolly. Every head whipped in his direction. Without missing a beat, Leonard grabbed the bow straight from Clara Francis's bodyguard and smoothly drew back the string. The second that string tightened, absolute chaos. A massive shockwave of wind pressure blasted outward from the weapon itself. The raw power alone left everyone standing there completely speechless, the very air vibrating like the bow had literally just woken up. Even Ninian was visibly shook, her eyes totally wide. Who even are you? She breathed out. Keeping his aim perfectly steady, Leonard replied without a flinch. I'm Leonard, from the Aquamarine adventure crew. Off to the side, Clara gave a small nod. Thanks for using my bow. Leonard. Francis, though, was staring at him like he grew a second head. Wait, Leonard is an archer too. she whispered to herself. Snapping out of it, Frances flashed Ninian a super warm smile. It's Ninian, right? How about teaming up with us instead? Frances pitched with zero hesitation. Honestly, looking at your situation, this is a massive win-win. Trust me, zero regrets. Ninian just stood there completely quiet, totally mind-blown by the crazy flex she just witnessed. Leonard's flawless stance kept looping in her head like a viral clip. That draw just now, she thought wildly. That is leagues above my own archery, which is basically just a cheap knockoff of spirit arts. If I could actually master a skill like that. But before she could drop an answer, some random hater busted out laughing. Zero regrets, are you kidding? He scoffed hard. Word on the street is Aquamarine is literally one bad day away from disbanding. He locked eyes with Ninian, his voice dropping ice cold. You better use your brain here. Nobody is playing hero when you're drowning on a sinking ship. The guy kept running his mouth, aggressively trying to corner Ninian into a choice. Unlike a certain dead-end squad, the captain of Santa Maria is. But right before he could finish aggressively glazing his boss, an absolute unit of a man shoved his way to the front. The sheer aura of this guy instantly shut up every single adventurer in the room. Cut the garbage, the giant rumbled smoothly. The second the crowd caught a glimpse of him, that loudmouth bully stiffened up like a board, stuttering out B-boss. The absolute mountain of a man scanned the room, oozing pure alpha energy before dropping his next line. We don't need to explain ourselves. Everyone in this room already knows exactly who we are. And they did. This was Christopher Conrad himself, the top dog commander of the Santa Maria crew. Christopher crossed his massive arms, flashing a condescending smirk at the crowd. Whatever not like B-rank scrubs would get it anyway. Boom. The tension in the room instantly shot through the roof. He wasn't even flexing his killing intent yet, but the suffocating pressure radiating off Christopher was literally enough to make everyone hold their breath and back up. From a distance, Leonard kept his mouth shut, scanning the boss up and down. This guy, Leonard calculated. He looks like a brainless meathead, but he is an absolute monster. He's literally one level up away from hitting the transcendent tier. Leonard's eyes sharpened to slits, sizing up Christopher's hulking frame and that sick, heavy aura. If we throw hands right here, right now, I am going to get absolutely crushed, he admitted to himself. But at the same time, a sniper-level archer like Ninian is basically an automatic win condition for naval battles. She is the exact carry Aquamarine is dying for. His jaw locked as his eyes burned with fierce determination. There is zero chance I'm letting a top-tier talent like her walk away. Staring down a boss that completely outleveled him, Leonard didn't even flinch. His vibe was unbreakable. If we have to throw down over this, so be it. She's joining my crew. Boom, cue the flashback. We dive deep into Ninian's tragic backstory, seeing a much younger, totally innocent Ninian hanging out with her bubbly older half-sister Vivian. It's super obvious Ninian idolized her. She remembers how, even as a half-elf outcast, her sister was her entire world. Vivian was this gorgeous, pure-blooded elf with insane spirit magic. But to Ninian, she was simply her day-one bestie. But that cozy little life got brutally ripped away in a flash when slave traders ruthlessly snatched, right in front of her. That nightmare of watching Vivian get taken is permanently burned into Ninian's brain. The head of that sketchy crew, an absolute creep, grabbed Vivian just to milk her ultra-rare spirit magic, forcing her to sign her literal life away. Cornered and completely helpless, baby Ninian had begged for her sister's freedom, promising to do whatever it takes. But the guy just cracked up, clowning her weak magic and tossing her out like trash just for being a mixed blood. That crushing feeling of being totally powerless still eats at her today. Fast forward to now, and Ninian is locked in. She knows it's all on her to rescue her sister, but plot twist, she actually has backup. Leonard steps up to the plate, zero hesitation. He flat out challenges Christopher Conrad, the big boss of the Santa Maria crew, throwing down a one-on-one duel for Vivian's contract. The entire room drops their jaws. Marion is low-key freaking out, tugging on Leonard's sleeve to stop his wild stunt. She begs Fran to call him off, dropping the reality check that this means full-blown beef with an A-tier squad. Fran, though, she just gives Leonard that explain-yourself look. He stays super chill, telling her this is the ultimate loophole to bag not only a cracked archer but a hyper-rare spirit user too. He just asks her to let him cook. The silence is deafening. Then Fran's eyes lock in. She gives him the nod, it is a go. Catching Ninian freezing up, Leonard grabs her wrist to ground her. He straight up asks if she's getting cold feet, hyping her up to stand her ground. But this mega flex completely triggers Christopher. The guy snatches Leonard right by the collar, absolutely seeing red. The massive captain talks down to him, screaming about what a random rookie could possibly bet for a prize as top tier as an elven spirit user. Ninian just watches her heart doing backflips between pure terror and a tiny spark of hope. Right when things are about to explode, Fran steps into the spotlight, cranking the stakes all the way to the moon. She announces Aquamarine is betting the deeds to their entire ship, and to make it spicy, she demands Santa Maria's A-tier exploration pass in return. Christopher's eyes practically pop out of his skull at the massive flex. Leonard just watches his captain smirking like he knew this would happen. Hooked by the gamble, Christopher bites. But he slaps on one major rule so they can't just hire mercenaries. The fight has to stay in-house with Aquamarine members only. He sneers, saying he won't let some rich girl pay a swordmaster to carry her. And to make things extra personal, he locks it in as a one-on-one showdown. Him versus Leonard. End of discussion. Terms locked. Christopher and his squad roll out, leaving behind a crazy thick tension in the room. Fast forward to their base at the Atlantis Magic Tower. Reality finally hits. Marion literally slams her fist on the table, stressing out. She calls Leonard totally unhinged for fighting an A-tier boss. She drops a harsh reminder that Conrad isn't just some brainless tank. The dude is a veteran magic swordsman with insane power. Fran, meanwhile, is just sipping her tea completely unbothered. She just shrugs and says Conrad is a massive creep who grinds her gears. The squad huddles around the table. The vibe's incredibly heavy. Marion argues that even if she and Ninian tag in, they'd get totally wiped by a magic swordsman on Conrad's level. Ninian, feeling massive guilt over the whole thing, apologizes for dragging them into her drama. But Leonard just tells her to chill. While he's talking, this insane neon blue aura starts leaking from his blade. He stands up completely coated in this blinding heavy energy. The crew is absolutely shook. Fran gasps her eyes wide, instantly recognizing the legendary sword aura technique. She is totally floored. Based on his official stats, Leonard is only supposed to be a stage 3 rookie, way too low level to pull off a move like this. Leaning into the hype, Leonard smirks and drops the mic. His official rank is completely fake. He admits he just never had a reason to go full tryhard until today. And tapping into his real power, he guarantees he's wiping the floor with Conrad. Fran is literally speechless for a second. Her brain short circuits trying to process this massive plot twist about their newest guy. But then all the worry vanishes, flipping into a huge glowing smile. She tells Leonard she knew she was right to let him cook from day one. He just tosses back a cool thanks for believing in him. But Ninian, even though she's hyped, drops a massive reality check. Conrad might not be a master tier boss yet, but he's still a deadly magic swordsman. The crew desperately needs a counter to his crazy magic. But right as they start cooking up a strategy, boom, surprise guests drop in. It is literally Esther pulling up with the top dog of the Magic Tower, Jack Russell. Jack immediately flexes that he already knows the whole vibe. Turns out our boy Leonard, totally predicting some shady business, rolled straight up to the tower and personally tapped the chief elder. He wanted the absolute heaviest hitter to ref this showdown. Leonard and Fran stand totally locked in before one of the most OP dudes in Atlantis. Jack gives them the green light with zero hesitation, claiming Leonard saved Esther's neck, making him an automatic VIP of the tower, flashing a wicked little smirk. Jack admits he totally bets a snake like Conrad would spam dirty tricks just to secure the dub. The camera pans to a pitch-black room hyping up a brand-new boss-level threat. Enter Pablo L. Orlando Peterson, a literal heavy hitter on the Atlantis Union Council, and the captain of the A-rank squad, Moby Dick. Christopher Conrad is bowing down to him like a total fanboy. Pablo hits a smug grin, mentioning he is fully caught up on the duel drama. He spots the ultimate cheat code to snatch up the ridiculously rare Aquamarine. To guarantee they secure the W, Pablo slides Conrad a super sketchy glowing power-up. This forbidden juice promises to temporarily buff Conrad way past Swordmaster levels. Conrad just scoffs, thinking he can casually clap Leonard without the extra sauce. But one absolute death stare from Pablo instantly shuts down his yapping. Pablo coldly orders him to stop sleeping on his opponent, guessing Aquamarine is definitely hiding some major heat. He demands Conrad down the potion and bag that Aquamarine no matter the cost. Backed into a corner, Conrad tightens his grip and swallows his pride, his face twisting into pure sweat dripping focus. Cutting back to base, Leonard's eyes are glowing with main character energy, totally ready to tank whatever absolute garbage his enemy tries to pull. The day of the massive clash finally drops in the stunning port of Atlantis. The hype train pulls into the Bermuda Grand Auditorium, a colossal coliseum where absolute units go to wipe out their beefs. Up in the bleachers, the crowd is going totally feral, throwing down insane cash on this do-or-die throwdown. The whole vibe of the stadium is extremely obvious. Literally everyone is glazing the A-rank Captain Conrad for an easy win. Meanwhile, the Aquamarine squad is stressing hard, Nin barely holding it together as she watches the guy risking it all for her sister's freedom, right dead center of the ring. The absolute tank of a captain. Conrad glares down at his opponent like he is staring at absolute trash. But right across the way, Leonard is chilling unbothered, those glowing red eyes radiating heavy silent menace. The mic drops as the hype man screams for the one-on-one match. A literal David and Goliath clash deciding the fate of two whole crews. But this is not some random street scrap. The announcer hypes up the official VIP referee, the big boss of the Magic Tower, Jack Russell in the flesh. Having Jack pull up was an absolute big brain play. A masterclass scheme totally cooked up by Fran. We hit a flashback to Fran throwing down an absolutely unhinged idea to Esther. She wants to throw every single penny Aquamarine owns onto the duel. Fran practically begs, gripping her hands like her life depends on it. This is not just a blind guess. It is a mega-brained glitch to instantly multiply their entire bank account. The math is literally basic. Since the entire stadium is simping for Conrad, the payout multiplier on Leonard is straight up going to the moon. It is the ultimate high-risk, high-reward play. This entire trap was plotted out way in advance. Since Leonard has zero online footprint, the odds makers completely slept on him, setting up the most brutal bait for greedy gamblers. Leonard steps up to seal the deal, flexing an absolutely goated blade he snagged from the tower's stash. He promises Esther that holding this piece of gear means taking an L is physically impossible, catching his rock-solid vibe. Esther finally stops sweating bullets. She looks him in the eye, asking if he is truly 100% locked in. Leonard flashes the most reassuring smirk, validating her faith, and tells her to go absolutely all in. Smashing back to the present, the announcer screams for the chaos to kick off, and Conrad instantly skips the intro cutscene. He closes the gap, hitting Leonard with a nasty smirk to remind him that permanently logging players out is completely legal in this zone. Leonard just completely roasts him back, asking if the giant is so scared that his mouth won't stop yapping. Totally triggered by the kid's disrespect, Conrad's chill vibe instantly evaporates. He completely erupts, flexing his tier 5 mage stats, spamming massive fireballs, and swearing to wipe that smirk off. Leonard's face. The flaming nukes rocket straight for their target. But Leonard absolutely glitches out of reality. Casually ghosting through the blazing barrage, he quickly scans the enemy attack, realizing it is time to drop his own ultimate right from the jump. The borrowed epic tier sword violently hums to life. Radiating a blinding neon teal energy, this isn't your everyday basic sword. It's a god-tier artifact built to handle pure mana. Leonard coats the steel in razor-sharp wind magic. Ready to serve Conrad up a giant plate of karma, he casually shreds right through those incoming fireballs, scattering the flames into a chaotic shower of sparks. Conrad's jaw practically hits the floor. Wait, this kid isn't just swinging a blade. Bro is a full-blown magic swordsman. Before the captain can even blink, Leonard is already breathing down his neck. His weapon becomes an absolute blur of silver. He bridges the gap in a literal nanosecond, completely shattering every single expectation Conrad had. Thrown totally off guard, the giant desperately smashes his boot into the arena, ripping up a massive chunk of earth for a makeshift shield. The brutal impact finally stalls Leonard's insane rush. But surprise, Conrad quietly planted a sneaky gravity-crushing hex right under his feet, masking the trap with the exploding rubble to anchor our boy in place. Seeing his target bogged down, he summons a crackling lightning strike from above, totally convinced that high agility means nothing when you weigh a ton. A blinding pillar of electricity swallows Leonard whole, leaving him seemingly trapped inside the devastating blast. The battlefield completely detonates, kicking up a massive blinding dust cloud. But as the smoke clears, plot twist, Conrad is the one bleeding, rocking a fresh slash across his face. Leonard literally ate that lightning bolt for breakfast and already snapped back. He combos into a savage roundhouse right to the captain's jaw, finishing with a ruthless stomp that buries the giant face first into the concrete. Conrad hacks up Crimson, absolutely paralyzed by how incredibly violent that payback was. Standing there with his shirt shredded, which, let's be honest, gives him major main character energy, Leonard freezes him with a deadpan glare. He mocks the captain, saying a so-called magic swordsman who won't even unsheath his primary weapon is nothing but a total joke. Scrambling out of the dirt, Conrad finally admits he totally misread this kid. Desperate times call for desperate measures, so he busts out the shady secret stash his boss handed him. He pops the pitch-black elixir, gulping it down with zero hesitation. The chemical hits his bloodstream, instantly ripping a guttural, agonizing scream from his lungs as his anatomy starts mutating into something monstrous. A nightmare-inducing deep violet energy violently explodes from his core, warping his face into an ugly demonic snarl. Spiked on this illegal power-up, his pupils ignite blood red as he promises to brutally end the kid's life. Yet Leonard just chills, analyzing this mutated freak show. Realizing the raw stats pouring out of Conrad, bro just leveled up to a literal swordmaster class. The roided-out captain launches himself, soaring into the sky with his massive broadsword. Leonard just flashes an icy smirk. Guess this washed-up boomer actually kept a hidden card up his sleeve. As Conrad brings that colossal slab of steel crashing down like a meteor, Leonard doesn't even flinch. He parries. In one clean motion, Leonard's blade amputates Conrad's leg, painting the arena red. The drug-crazed beast shrieks in absolute agony, his eyes glowing with pure, unhinged wrath. He starts swinging like a madman, but it's all sloppy, mindless muscle with zero technique. Leonard effortlessly styles on him, vaulting over the chaotic slashes with a gravity-defying jump. Conrad glares up at the hovering kid meeting his pitch-black gaze as Leonard calmly announces the tutorial is officially over. Pushed to the absolute edge, Conrad finally taps into his hardcore training. He ignites a toxic purple aura that wraps completely around his giant blade. Leonard's face remains completely stone-cold. Noticing the big guy is finally wielding his weapon like a pro, he figures it's time to show him how it's really done. Boom! An absolutely blinding sapphire blue energy cloak erupts, engulfing Leonard's entire silhouette. The two rival energies, one toxic and twisted, the other flawless and brutally disciplined, rocket straight at each other. They smash together in the dead center of the stadium, triggering a massive, shockwave-inducing explosion. But honestly, it's not even a fair fight. Leonard's glowing azure strike instantly vaporizes Conrad's dark magic. The captain gets blasted backwards like a rag doll, completely stripped of his defenses, while Leonard relentlessly closes in. Conrad's eyes lock on in sheer, paralyzing horror. His brain simply cannot process how a literal teenager mastered an aura blade. But what Leonard drops on him next? It's way beyond this guy's pay grade. His majestic blue energy morphs into a massive ghostly dragon. The sheer pressure of it literally starts cracking the stadium's foundation. Up in the VIP section, the arena boss Carmen jumps out of his seat, screaming his lungs out that this match has to be a total setup. He desperately tries to cancel the whole duel, crying foul because there is just no logical way an elite magic swordsman could ever get clapped by a random kid. Yeah, this is Carmen, the big shot running the A-rank Coliseum. And he just fumbled his entire life savings betting on a guaranteed win. He grinds his teeth in sheer panic, realizing this one loss is about to completely bankrupt him. All thanks to that illegal steroid that was supposed to be a cheat code to victory. But right then, a chillingly calm voice slices straight through his pathetic temper tantrum. Enter Jack Russell. The chief elder completely ices Carmen with a deadpan stare, asking if this guy seriously plans to cancel an official throwdown that he personally watched and stamped with his own seal. The announcer straight up freezes, and Carmen turns paler than a ghost. Messing with the chief elder in Atlantis. That is basically a one-way ticket to the graveyard. Carmen instantly hits reverse, stuttering out a million apologies for running his mouth. A sharp glare bounces right off Jack's lenses. Every single detail, even this pathetic scramble to scrap the match, was perfectly calculated by Leonard from the jump. His job here is done. Jack spins on his heel, ready to bounce. But before he dips, he drops one heavy question on Leonard. How exactly is he going to handle that guy? The entire crowd snaps their attention back to the ring, where Leonard towers over a completely shattered Captain Conrad. Fast forward past the crazy bloodbath, we catch up with the Aquamarine crew, cruising under a crystal-clear sky, inside the captain's cabin. A massive W finally drops. Their master plan just got the green light. Fran hypes up the squad, announcing they are officially cleared to raid rank C zones. Sure, there are still a handful of annoying hoops to jump through, but the biggest flex, thanks to the absolute bag they secured from the arena, their broke era is officially over for a good long while. With total raw emotion in her eyes, Fran gives Leonard a massive shout-out for carrying them to victory. Leonard keeps it casual, just tossing back that he was happy to pitch in. Right on cue, two shadows slide up beside him. It is Ninian and her freshly rescued sister Vivian. They basically shower Leonard in praise for dragging them out of hell. Vivian introduces herself as a hardcore wind spirit user, and she is totally crushing on her edgy new hero. Leonard, staying cold as ice, brushes it off, saying their goals just happen to match up. As long as they pull their own weight on the ship, that is all he cares about. The elf twins get totally flustered by his blunt vibe, but they still try pushing a real reward on him. Fran smoothly intercepts, welcoming the girls to the family and dropping the ultimate truth bomb. Real friends do not track favors. She tags Marion in to guide the two new elf rookies to their bunks. Fast forward to midnight, Fran spots Leonard chilling solo on the deck, bathed in starlight. She jokes that his terrifying aura probably scared the rest of the crew into their beds way too early. The heavy silence pushes her to finally spill the real tea, the hidden reason why she is dying to forge a rank A adventure squad. Leonard, sharp as a tack, calmly replies that he has already pieced the puzzle together. Fran begs him to just hear her out anyway, confessing that choking down this baggage is tearing her apart. Leonard nods, locking in to hear the tragic origin story of the captain he chose to back. Boom, we rewind 8 whole years. Welcome to the Union Council, the absolute top dogs pulling the strings in Atlantis. A super toxic meeting is going down. They are sweating over a vicious blood-red rift swirling in the Fifth Sea, and a fiery young captain is fighting tooth and nail against ignoring this ticking time bomb. This is Nord, the original captain of the Aquamarine and Fran's literal dad. But this arrogant, top-tier politician named Pablo just brushes off his massive warnings. Pablo smugly flexes that the rift is locked down and will not blow up for decades. Nord fires back that their fancy data is pure trash if some random disaster actually hits. That is when Pablo drops the mask. He argues that this deadly vortex is basically a goldmine for insanely rare loot from another dimension. Nord's face completely twists with absolute disgust at this filthy greed. He launches himself across the room, snatching Pablo right by the collar, spitting mad that this suit would gamble human lives for some quick cash. But Pablo does not even flinch. He just coldly claps back, reminding Nord that the entire glowing empire of Atlantis was literally built on the mountains of cash from those exact, dangerous drops. His eyes flash with pure evil, proving that this guy is rotten all the way to the core. Glancing around at the dead silent council, Nord gets hit with a brutal reality check. Every single one of them is already bought and paid for. Disgusted, Nord violently shoves Pablo away, realizing this rigged game is already over. The verdict is sealed. Totally crushed, Nord stomps back to his deck and completely shatters a table with a furious punch. He barks out that they cannot trust the other Rank A squads for backup anymore, with absolute hellfire burning in his eyes. He locks in a wild choice. The Aquamarine crew is going to wipe out every single rift solo. Rocking his crisp white captain's trenchcoat, Nord hypes up his squad for a literal suicide mission. The massive ship revs up to max power, wrapped in a blazing blue force field as it charges straight into the danger zone. Its mana core vibrates with insane explosive energy. The beast of a ship shreds through the crushing waves at breakneck speed. They completely unleash their aura, gearing up to face the world's deadliest monsters without a shred of backup. Fran's voice echoes, dropping the lore that in its prime, Aquamarine was an absolute powerhouse. They flexed a level 7 mage and 3 brawlers hovering right on the edge of transcendence. Commanded by the legendary Spear Knight Nord, they actually pulled off the impossible, smashing and sealing 4 massive rifts in under 30 days. But spoiler alert, nobody threw a parade for these absolute legends. Nord is getting chewed out by the council over the comms. They order him to back off, whining that his massive flexes are making the other guilds look like absolute jokes and tanking their profits. Nord totally ghosts their warnings, clapping back that his crew is staying put until they lock down the final most lethal dungeon out there, Charybdis. The council suit absolutely loses his mind over the radio, screaming that it's a straight-up death wish. But Nord doesn't even flinch. He is totally locked in. To him, the insane risk is exactly why they need to shut this thing down. Without skipping a single beat, the Aquamarine nosedives straight into the swirling toxic vortex of alien energy. The legendary warship gets swallowed whole by the massive rift. Snapping back to reality, Leonard quietly asks how it all went down. Fran physically pulls away. Her voice cracks heavy with grief as she pictures the absolute powerhouse her family used to be. You can literally see the heartbreak flash across her face. Leonard just lets the silence hang fully, grasping the heavy trauma she's been carrying. The memory kicks back in. The Aquamarine bursts out of the portal, totally victorious, cruising right into this golden, picture-perfect sunset. The whole squad is hyping up their massive win on the ride home. Nord stares out across the water. He's peacefully soaking in the fact that he just bought humanity a little more time against the apocalypse. A soft smile hits his face. He knows his little girl is waiting on the docks, probably throwing a cute tantrum because he's been gone forever. Right on cue, a tiny Fran and her bodyguard Marion step onto the wooden deck. Nord excitedly yells out her name. Her eyes light up, asking if her dad is finally back for good. But before they can even hug, a blinding, fiery shockwave rips through the air. Their entire headquarters is going up in flames. It's a total blindside attack from the Moby. Dick Fleet. Nord's expression drops into pure, gutted betrayal the second he connects the dots. Pablo orchestrated this whole bloodbath. Marion dives, throwing herself over a sobbing Fran to block the shrapnel. Nord shreds his vocal cords, screaming at Marion to get his little girl out alive. He starts barking frantic commands at his bleeding crew, desperately trying to carve an escape route toward the main harbor. Clenching his jaw, he orders his last standing warriors to buy them time against the enemy fleet. Meanwhile, Pablo laughs right in his face, trashing Nord's pride and ordering his goons to completely obliterate the Aquamarine's legacy into dust. That snaps something inside Nord. He absolutely goes off, erupting with raw, untamed, roaring at that snake Pablo to shut his trash mouth. Nord's eyes are burning with this god-tier unbreakable resolve. He spits out a final vow. Even if he gets wiped off the map today, the fierce spirit of the aquamarine is going to survive inside Fran. And just like that, his legendary ship gets swallowed in one massive, deafening fireball. The flashback cuts out violently, slamming us back to the present, where Fran is glaring with that exact same blood-chilling intensity her dad had. She flat out states that dropping her dad's ultimate dream isn't even an option. She gives Leonard one last chance to bail. She keeps it 100 with him admitting that riding with her means declaring all-out war on Atlanta. Facing Antis itself, Leonard shuts that doubt down in a heartbeat. He isn't bailing on them any time. Flashing a smirk, he tells her that clashing with heavy-hitting, top-tier enemies is exactly what gets his blood pumping. With a feral glint flashing in his eyes, he drops a cold truth. If they are who do not deserve an ounce of mercy, that is just the cherry on top. Fran is totally thrown off by his ride-or-die loyalty and absolute thirst for combat. That stunned silence shatters into a burst of pure, relieved laughter. Calling him totally insane in the best way, she asks if he is down to keep rolling with her as an official, full-fledged member of Aquamarine. Leonard flashes a smooth, cocky smirk. He tells Fran she can definitely count on it. Fast forward a few days back at the Bermuda base. The Aquamarine squad is absolutely grinding, with a massive target finally locked in their sights. Slacking off is totally out of the question. The whole crew is hyper-focused, leveling up their stats and gearing up for the brutal trials about to drop. Out in the training yard, Leonard commands the center of a hardcore sparring session, even while catching a 2-on-1 fade. He is chilling completely unbothered. Ninian snipes a wind-charged arrow straight at his head, but Leonard flawlessly pivots, dodging the strike by a literal hair. Without missing a beat, Marion blitzes him from the blind spot, her blade slicing the air at lightning speed. Leonard slickly deflects her strike before snapping right back on the offensive. His sword blurs forward with insane, heavy-hitting pressure, shoving both girls back on defense. A few rapid-fire clashes later, Leonard throws up a hand calling the match. Marion and Ninian freeze in their tracks, absolutely gasping for air. Sweat drips down their faces as their lungs burn. This boot camp has definitely pushed their limits, but the ultimate level up is undeniable. Looking them over, Leonard gives a solid approving nod. He hypes up their massive improvement, totally praising how crazy good their combo attacks have gotten. He breaks it down. Flawless teamwork is the only way they survive the deadly grind. Ahead, hearing that validation pumps Marion and Ninian full of confidence. With Leonard running the drills, they can literally feel their power spiking with every single sunrise. Wrapping up the sweat session, Leonard drops the news. Their VIP guests just pulled up and are waiting. Lurking just a few steps away was a guy dripped out in a razor-sharp suit. He gripped some official-looking paperwork in one hand, completely silent, while absorbing everything that had just gone down. The second Leonard and his squad rolled up. The guy finally spoke up, introducing himself as the absolute top dog of Bermuda's A-rank haul. He confessed he'd been secretly spectating their entire sparring session from the shadows, adding that the crazy street rumors were actually totally spot on. Leonard really did wipe the floor with Captain Conrad. But what really blew his mind was watching Leonard absolutely body Marion and Ninian, Bermuda's most hyped B-rank duo, without breaking a single sweat or needing it. Benjamin straight up declared that after seeing their insane stats up close, he had zero doubts left Leonard's raw combat power was already easily flexing at the level of an elite A-rank adventurer. But then Benjamin's chill vibe completely vanished, his face turning dead serious. Fran's radar instantly went off. She knew a massive roadblock was coming. Even though Aquamarine's raw firepower easily cleared the promotion check, one glaring technicality was hard locking them from leveling up. Their squad was painfully short-handed. Benjamin broke it down. Any legit A-rank guild needs a mandatory headcount of active players, and Aquamarine's roster was currently looking way too empty to qualify. Without missing a beat, Fran demanded to know exactly how many bodies they were short. Benjamin just smirked and held up 2 fingers. The mission was crystal clear. If they could draft just 2 more heavy hitters, that glorious A-rank badge would be theirs on the spot. With their new side quest officially unlocked, Fran and Leonard hit the gritty city streets to scout for some fresh talent. But they didn't bother checking the shiny high-end districts where the posh adventurers usually kicked back. Nope, instead, they dove straight into the absolute trenches, the grimiest, most chaotic sector of the city. The alleyways were packed tight, echoing and crawling with extremely sketchy dudes mean-mugging them from every single shadow. Scanning this absolute dump, Leonard really couldn't help but heavily doubt they'd ever find someone actually trustworthy in a literal gutter like this. Fran, on the flip side, was completely unbothered. She was dead set on the idea that buried deep within this mess were hidden gems whose crazy skills could become the ultimate carry for Aquamarine if they could just talk them into signing the contract. But before they could even take another step into the hood, a super aggressive voice barked out, completely cutting them off. A whole mob of heavily scarred street punks swarmed out, totally barricading the alley. Their boss glared down at them with a nasty smirk, aggressively asking if they even realized whose block they were. Stepping on. This whole turf was locked down by Big Bergano, and random normies definitely weren't getting a free. His eyes flashed with pure hostility as he growled at them to bounce immediately before things got violently ugly. That thug actually tried to draw his steel, but before the blade could even catch the light, Leonard blurred into. His hand snapped out like a viper, dead stopping the guy's arm in a flash. He coldly dropped the memo that they weren't here to start beef. But rule number 1, once you flash a weapon, the vibe totally shifts, without another word. Leonard slammed a brutal palm strike straight into the dude's ribcage. The guy caught literal air, flying backward like a broken toy, before eating brick and sliding down completely knocked out. The rest of the crew totally glitched out, staring in absolute shock at the one-shot knockout. Suddenly all eyes snapped toward a heavy silhouette peeling out of the shadows. The air just got instantly heavy. This newcomer strolled up carrying that terrifyingly calm boss energy, and even his own goons breathed a massive sigh of relief seeing him. Spotting an actual threat, Leonard didn't even hesitate. He closed the gap in a heartbeat, launching a lethal roundhouse kick. The shadow dude tanked the hit like it was absolutely nothing. Smirking, he mocked that the strike packed some serious speed and weight, wrapping thick chains around his forearm. He flared up a blinding blue aura that sparked with wild energy. To your average street rat, this kind of flex would be straight up terrifying, but to a hardened merc who basically dances with the Grim Reaper for a living, it was just Tuesday. In a split second, the boss ripped a massive scythe through the air. The giant blade carved a deadly high-speed arc. Leonard instantly dropped to a knee, barely ducking the fatal sweep as it sliced right over his head, glancing up from the dirt. A savage smirk crept onto Leonard's face. He casually clapped back that he was thinking the exact same thing about that attack. Off to the side, Fran's eyes practically bugged out. Gano. The name slipped from her lips, totally shell-shocked. The scythe wielder froze, finally locking eyes with her. His tough facade cracked, asking in total disbelief if she was really little Francis from back in the day. Hearing that, Leonard instantly connected the dots. This was their ultimate target, the very guy they'd been hunting down. Gano the Whaler. Fran frantically nodded to confirm. They had actually found him. Gano looked completely lost, demanding to know why they were suddenly tracking him down. After all these years, inhaling sharply, Fran stepped right up to the front. Fran's voice was dead serious as she announced she was completely rebooting Aquamarine's operations. But to pull this off, she desperately needed his muscle. Dropping his full heavyweight title, she hyped him up as one of Aquamarine's absolute legends, not to mention the little brother of the one and only Stormtooth Dantuso. With pure hope lighting up her eyes, she begged him to lend them his insane power and step back on right by their side just like the good old days. For a split second, dead silence choked the street. Then Gano's face turned completely cold. He straight up told her to pack it up and go home. He gave Fran a harsh reality check, saying Aquamarine's mess was way deeper than she wanted to admit. They didn't just pick a fight with Moby Dick. They literally made an enemy out of the entire empire of Atlantis. Staring a hole right through her, he snapped, asking if she seriously expected him to catch a win where even his god-tier brother got absolutely destroyed. Exhaling a massive, exhausted sigh, Gano turned his back and started walking off. He threw out a half-baked apology, making it crystal clear he wasn't joining their suicide. He had zero interest in walking down a massive dead end. As his crew trailed right behind him, he tossed back one last piece of advice, telling Fran to drop the ego and find a brand new hustle. Fran was left completely paralyzed on the spot. That rejection hit way harder than she braced for. Even though she already knew getting Gano on board would be a massive headache, hearing him actually say no felt like watching her very last lifeline snap in half. Her shoulders slumped as crushing disappointment flooded her chest. But out of nowhere, Leonard finally spoke up. He smoothly told her to hold that thought and stay put. Before Fran could even process what the heck he was scheming, Leonard launched himself forward like an absolute missile. His body blurred straight across the pavement, zeroing in on the retreating Gano. Catching the sound of that explosive movement, Gano whipped around, pure fury flashing across his face. He barked out a warning, demanding to know what the hell Leonard thought he was trying to pull. Leonard slammed the brakes right in front of him and squared up. A completely unhinged grin stretched across his face. "If talking it out isn't going to cut it," he declared, "then I am just going to have to persuade you with my fist." The exact millisecond those words, Leonard charged. He buried a devastating punch right into Gano with a bone-shattering, massive impact that literally rang down the The sheer kinetic force sent the former legend rocketing backward, instantly spiderwebbing the cobblestone street beneath their feet. As a massive cloud of dust swallowed, Leonard casually strolled over to a dumped spear, snatching it up with zero hesitation. Locking eyes with Gano, he instantly started dropping some serious trash talk. Like, wasn't the dude totally exhausted from blindly walking down dead-end roads? 'Cause honestly, from Leonard's point of view, it seriously looked like Gano had completely lost the plot of his own life. Gano violently forced himself back onto his knees, spitting absolute venom under his breath while shooting daggers at the young adventurer. He snapped, demanding to know what kind of twisted mind games Leonard was trying to pull. Totally unbothered, Leonard just leveled the spear tips straight at his face. He boldly declared he was about to show Gano the exact path he actually needed to walk. Sure, his spear stats weren't nearly as cracked as his top-tier sword skills, but it was still way more than enough to completely wipe the floor with this guy. Suddenly, an intense spark finally flared up inside Gano's tired eyes. He instantly realized this wasn't just some fake flex. This kid's raw power was 100% legit. Slowly pushing himself up to his feet, Gano locked an iron grip onto his weapon. The savage aura of a hardcore veteran warrior flooded right back into his stare as he squared up. "Don't get too arrogant," he aggressively growled. "Just because you picked up a stick doesn't mean you can actually survive a real spear fight." And right after dropping that the suffocating tension between these two absolute beasts reached its breaking point as the epic showdown was officially about to kick off.